Good evening, and welcome back to my channel Sleep Beneath History, my friend. Before we begin tonight's slow journey through history, I would like to say a small thank you for being here. If you enjoy these peaceful history stories and they help you relax, please consider liking this video, leaving a comment, and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us continue exploring the quiet corners of history together. Now settle into a comfortable place. Let your shoulders relax. Take a slow, gentle breath. There is nowhere else you need to be tonight. The busy day is behind you. The only thing waiting ahead is a calm journey across quiet waters, where history moves at the same gentle pace as the waves. Tonight, we are traveling far into the cold North Atlantic. We are visiting a place where the sea stretches to every horizon, where fishing boats rise and fall with the slow rhythm of the ocean, and where something as ordinary as a fish became the center of one of the most unusual disputes in modern history. This is the story of the Cod Wars between Iceland and the United Kingdom. Despite the name, these were not wars with great battles or mighty armies marching across fields. There were no castles under siege. There were no cities surrounded by walls. Instead, this was a quiet struggle that happened almost entirely at sea. Imagine waking before sunrise on a fishing boat. The wind is cold. Tiny drops of seawater cover every rail. Above you, the sky is still dark blue. Around you, the ocean seems endless. Somewhere beneath those quiet waves swims the Atlantic cod. For hundreds of years, this fish helped families survive. It filled dinner tables. It supported villages. It built businesses. It even helped shape entire countries. It may seem surprising today that people could argue so deeply over a single kind of fish. But when we look more closely, we discover that the Cod Wars were never only about cod. They were about people. They were about work. They were about protecting a way of life. And perhaps most of all, they were about two island nations that depended on the sea in very different ways. As the night grows quieter, let us begin at the beginning. Imagine yourself standing on the rocky coast of Iceland many centuries ago. The air feels fresh and cool. Gentle waves wash against black volcanic stones. Sea birds glide overhead, calling softly to one another. The landscape feels peaceful. There are no busy highways. No airplanes crossing the sky. No large cities glowing with electric lights. Instead, there are small farms scattered across green valleys. There are sheep grazing on grassy hillsides. Smoke rises gently from simple homes built to survive the long northern winters. Beyond everything lies the sea. The ocean is never far away. Even people who live several miles inland know that the sea provides much of what the island needs. The weather changes quickly here. One moment, the sunlight shines brightly across the water. The next, clouds drift in from the horizon, bringing cool rain or soft snow. The people of Iceland learn to respect these changes. Nature decides much of daily life. The seasons tell people when to plant. The weather tells them when to sail. The sea tells them when to fish. Fishing has always required patience. A fisherman cannot order the ocean to provide food. Instead, he watches the tides. He studies the wind. He notices the birds. He learns where fish gather during different times of the year. This knowledge passes quietly from one generation to the next. A father teaches a son. An uncle teaches a nephew. Neighbors share stories during the long winter evenings. Every trip onto the water adds another lesson. Some lessons are joyful. Others are difficult. The sea rewards careful people. But it also reminds everyone that nature is stronger than any person. Imagine one of these small wooden fishing boats. It is not large. There are no powerful engines. Instead, strong hands pull heavy oars through the cold water. Later, small sails catch the northern wind. The boat moves slowly over gentle waves. The fishermen speak only when necessary. Much of their work happens in peaceful silence. They know the sounds of the ocean well. The splash of water against the hull. The cry of distant seabirds. The creak of wooden beams. The soft flutter of sails. These sounds become part of everyday life. Far below the boat, schools of cod swim through the cold Atlantic. Cod enjoy these northern waters. The temperature is just right. The currents bring food. Generation after generation, the fish return to many of the same places. For Icelanders, this is a wonderful gift. Every successful catch means food for families. It also means something to trade with other countries. Life on Iceland has never been easy. The growing season is short. The land is beautiful, but often difficult for farming. Volcanoes remind everyone that the island itself is still alive beneath the ground. Winters can be long. Storms can arrive without much warning. Because of these challenges, the sea becomes even more important. It offers opportunities that the rocky land sometimes cannot. Fishing is not simply another job. It becomes the heart of the economy. Imagine walking through a small Icelandic village around 300 years ago. The morning sun rises slowly. People begin their work. Children carry small buckets. Women prepare food. Men inspect ropes and fishing lines. Older people repair nets while sharing stories from earlier years. Nothing feels rushed. Everyone knows today's tasks. There is comfort in familiar routines. The smell of salt fills the air. Wooden boats rest along the shore. Some are already returning from the early morning catch. Others are preparing to leave. Nearby, freshly caught fish hang on wooden drying racks. This is an old method of preserving food. Cold northern air slowly removes moisture from the fish. The result is a product that can last for many months. This becomes incredibly valuable. Fresh fish cannot travel very far without spoiling. But dried cod can cross oceans. It can feed sailors. It can supply distant markets. It can become one of Iceland's greatest exports. As the years pass, merchants from other lands begin to notice. Ships arrive from Norway, from Denmark, from Germany, later from Britain. Each visitor understands the value of Iceland's fish. Trade slowly grows. Small villages become busier. Families earn more money. Fishing techniques improve little by little. Yet many traditions remain the same. People still depend on experience more than technology. They still watch the weather carefully. They still respect the ocean. As evening arrives, boats return once again. Families gather near the shore. Children run to greet fathers, brothers, and grandfathers. Some boats return with full catches. Others bring only a few fish. No 2 days are exactly alike. That uncertainty becomes part of life. People celebrate good catches with quiet gratitude. Poor catches teach patience. No one expects the sea to be generous every day. Instead, they understand that nature follows its own rhythm. Imagine sitting inside one of these simple homes after sunset. Outside, the wind whistles softly. Inside, a warm fire glows. A meal is shared. Perhaps there is fish stew, fresh bread, butter, warm milk. Conversation is gentle. Someone tells a story from years ago. Someone else repairs a fishing hook while listening. Children slowly become sleepy. The room grows quieter. The fire crackles softly. This peaceful evening has repeated itself countless times across Iceland's history. Fishing is not only work. It shapes family life. It shapes traditions. It shapes celebrations. It even shapes dreams. Young boys imagine sailing farther than their fathers. Young girls learn the skills that keep homes running through difficult winters. Everyone understands the importance of the sea. No one imagines life without it. As centuries continue, larger ships begin appearing in northern waters. Technology slowly changes. Sails improve. Navigation becomes easier. Maps become more accurate. Countries across Europe begin fishing farther from home. The North Atlantic grows busier every decade. British fishermen also discover these rich fishing grounds. For generations, they have sailed across the sea in search of cod. Their voyages become longer. Their boats become larger. Their catches become greater. To many British fishing communities, Iceland's nearby waters seem almost endless. The fish appear plentiful. There is enough for everyone. Or so it seems. No one yet realizes that one day these peaceful waters will become the center of an international disagreement. For now, the sea remains quiet. Fishing boats from different nations sometimes pass one another with little more than a friendly wave. Each crew focuses on its own work. Each hopes for calm weather. Each hopes for a successful catch before returning home. The cod beneath the waves know nothing of borders. They swim wherever nature leads them. The ocean itself recognizes no national lines. Only people draw those invisible boundaries. And over time, those boundaries will become more important than anyone first imagined. But that story belongs to another chapter. For now, let us simply remain beside the quiet shore. Listen to the waves meeting the black volcanic rocks. Watch seabirds drifting across the pale northern sky. Feel the cool ocean breeze. Imagine hundreds of years passing peacefully, one fishing season after another. The sea continues its endless rhythm. The boats continue their patient journeys. The cod continue their ancient migration beneath the cold Atlantic waters. Everything feels calm. Everything feels timeless. And as the night grows a little deeper, we will slowly prepare to meet another nation whose own history has become just as closely tied to the sea. Their fishermen are waiting beyond the horizon. And together, their stories will shape one of the most remarkable peaceful conflicts in modern history. As the quiet evening continues, let us leave the rocky shores of Iceland behind for a little while. The gentle waves carry us south and east across the wide North Atlantic. The journey is long, but there is no need to hurry. The sea has all the time in the world, and tonight, so do we. Imagine the morning light slowly appearing over the waters surrounding the British Isles. The sun rises behind soft clouds. A cool breeze drifts across the surface of the sea. Small waves sparkle with pale silver light. Along the coast, fishing villages are beginning another ordinary day. Smoke curls from stone chimneys. Fishing boats rock gently in quiet harbors. Gulls circle overhead, hoping that breakfast may soon appear. For thousands of years, the people of Britain have lived beside the sea. No matter where someone lives in England, Scotland, Wales, or Northern Ireland, the ocean is never terribly far away. It has always been part of everyday life. The sea provides food. It provides trade. It provides travel. Sometimes it also brings danger. But above all, it provides opportunity. Imagine a small fishing village on the eastern coast of England many centuries ago. The streets are narrow. The houses are built from stone and wood. Fishing nets hang outside to dry after yesterday's work. Children play near the harbor while keeping a careful distance from the busy docks. Older fishermen quietly prepare their boats. They move with practiced hands. Every knot in a rope is tied without much thought. Every hook is checked. Every barrel is placed in its usual position. These small routines have been repeated for generations. There is comfort in doing familiar work. No one rushes. The sea cannot be hurried. A boat leaves when everything is ready, not a moment before. As you watch, several boats begin moving toward the open water. Some are small enough for only 2 or 3 fishermen. Others are larger sailing vessels carrying full crews. Each captain knows the coastline almost by heart. Long before modern maps and electronic navigation, sailors learned by watching cliffs, hills, stars, winds, and currents. The ocean itself became their guide. Many fishermen could tell where they were simply by watching the color of the water or the movement of seabirds. These were skills learned slowly. No classroom could teach them. Only years upon the sea could. The work itself was never easy. Fishing demanded patience more than strength. Sometimes the sea rewarded careful crews with nets full of cod, haddock, herring, or mackerel. Other days, they returned with very little. Nature decided the outcome. The fishermen accepted this. They learned not to argue with the sea. Instead, they respected it. Every successful voyage depended on weather, skill, and a little good fortune. Back in the villages, life continued while the boats disappeared beyond the horizon. Families waited. Women repaired clothing. Children helped with simple chores. Older people mended fishing nets or carved wooden tools. Everyone understood that their daily lives depended upon those boats returning safely. When evening finally arrived, people gathered near the harbor. They watched the distant horizon. Soon tiny sails appeared. Then the boats became larger. Voices grew louder. The day's catch was unloaded. Fresh fish filled baskets. Merchants inspected the catch. Some fish would be sold nearby. Others would travel far across Britain. Still more would be preserved with salt before being sent overseas. Salt was one of the greatest partners of the fishermen. Long before refrigeration, preserving fish meant survival. Fresh cod lasted only a short time. Salted cod could feed people months later. It could travel across oceans. It could supply ships sailing halfway around the world. Because of this, cod slowly became one of Britain's most valuable foods. It was affordable. It was nourishing. It lasted a long time. Families from every level of society came to depend upon it. As the centuries passed, Britain itself began to change. The population slowly grew. Towns became cities. Trade expanded. More mouths needed feeding every year. The demand for fish increased alongside everything else. British fishermen began sailing farther than ever before. The nearby waters still held fish, but larger catches could often be found farther north. The cold waters around Iceland became especially attractive. Those waters were famous. Sailors spoke about them in ports across Britain. The cod are plentiful there, one fisherman might quietly say. The journey is long, another would reply, but the catch is worth it. Generation after generation, these stories continued. Soon they became tradition. Young fishermen dreamed of making the northern voyage. Older captains proudly remembered their first successful trip. The journey was never simple. Imagine standing aboard one of these larger fishing vessels as it leaves the English coast. The shoreline slowly disappears behind you. The waves become larger. The wind grows colder. Days pass with nothing but ocean in every direction. Morning follows evening. Evening follows morning. The crew settles into a calm rhythm. Some prepare meals. Some repair equipment. Some watch the horizon. Others simply listen to the endless sound of the sea. There is something peaceful about spending so much time surrounded by water. The modern world feels very far away. Even conversations become quieter. The ocean encourages silence. At night, the stars seem brighter than anywhere on land. Without city lights, the heavens stretch endlessly overhead. The Milky Way appears like a pale river flowing across the darkness. Many sailors quietly study these stars. For centuries, they helped guide ships across open water. Even after navigation improved, many old captains still trusted the sky. Eventually, the boats reached the northern fishing grounds. The water here felt different. It was colder. The air carried a sharper chill. Sea birds gathered in great numbers. This was often a promising sign. Where birds gathered, fish were usually not far below. The fishermen carefully lowered their equipment. Sometimes they used long fishing lines. Later generations used larger trawl nets that swept through the water behind the ship. Technology gradually improved. Steam-powered ships appeared. Then diesel engines. Wooden vessels slowly gave way to stronger steel ships. Every improvement allowed fishermen to travel farther and stay at sea longer. Larger engines pulled larger nets. Larger nets caught more fish. At first, this seemed like wonderful progress. Families earned more money. Ports became busier. Businesses expanded. Shipbuilders found more work. Fish markets grew larger. Entire communities depended upon these successful fishing voyages. One town in particular became famous. Hull. Another was Grimsby. These ports grew into some of the busiest fishing centers in the world. Imagine walking through Grimsby during the early 20th century. Before sunrise, the streets are already alive. Horse-drawn carts carry supplies. Workers load ice into waiting ships. Dockside cranes slowly move heavy cargo. Fish merchants discuss prices. Ship captains read weather reports. Steam whistles echo across the harbor. Hundreds of people depend on today's departures. Some families own fishing boats. Others repair engines. Some weave nets. Others build barrels or crates. Restaurants buy fresh catches. Factories process fish. Railway workers prepare trains that will carry seafood inland. One successful voyage supports many different jobs. Fishing is far more than the men aboard the boats. It supports entire towns. Children grow up expecting to become fishermen, just as their fathers and grandfathers had done. Many do exactly that. Their first voyages are unforgettable. The sea seems enormous. Everything aboard the ship feels exciting. Older crew members patiently teach younger ones how to tie knots, how to read changing weather, how to repair torn nets, how to stay calm during rough seas. Knowledge is shared quietly, one lesson at a time. No book contains everything. Experience remains the greatest teacher. Yet while British fishing grows larger every decade, another quiet change is taking place beneath the waves. The cod cannot reproduce forever if too many are caught. No one notices this immediately. The ocean still appears endless. Each year brings another fishing season. Each season seems successful. Most people believe there will always be enough fish. The North Atlantic feels too vast to ever become empty. Few imagine that humans could remove so many fish that nature might struggle to replace them. It is an understandable belief. The sea looks limitless. Standing on the deck of a fishing trawler, every direction meets the horizon. Nothing suggests that resources might one day run low. But nature often changes slowly. The first signs are easy to miss. Perhaps the fish are slightly harder to find. Perhaps boats must travel a little farther. Perhaps the nets come back just a little lighter. These small differences seem unimportant. Most fishermen assume next season will be better. Many years pass before anyone realizes a much larger question is quietly approaching. Who should have the right to fish these waters? Should the sea belong equally to everyone? Or should nearby countries protect the fish closest to their shores? These questions have no easy answers. For generations, fishermen from many nations have shared these northern waters without serious disagreement. The ocean has always felt open, free, shared. Yet times are changing. Ships are becoming larger. Engines are becoming stronger. Fishing is becoming more efficient than ever before. The sea still appears peaceful, but beneath that peaceful surface, the future is slowly changing. On the distant shores of Iceland, people are beginning to worry about the fish that sustain their entire nation. In Britain, fishermen simply hope to continue the work their families have done for generations. Neither side believes they are doing anything wrong. Both simply wish to protect their future. And so, without anger, without shouting, and without anyone fully realizing it, two different ways of seeing the sea begin to drift slowly toward one another, like gentle currents meeting beneath calm water. For now, no conflict has begun. The waves still roll quietly across the North Atlantic. Fishing boats continue their patient work. Seabirds still circle above schools of cod. The wind still carries only the familiar sounds of ropes, sails, engines, and distant gulls. Everything feels peaceful. Yet history is quietly preparing to turn another page. And as the stars begin to appear above the northern ocean once again, we will soon discover why the humble Atlantic cod became one of the world's most valuable fish, and why protecting it would change the future of nations. As the quiet night settles a little deeper around us, let us remain beside the cold waters of the North Atlantic. The stars shine softly overhead. A cool breeze moves across the sea. Far away, the gentle sound of waves reaches the rocky shore. Everything feels calm. Everything moves at its own peaceful rhythm. Now, imagine that you are standing on the deck of a fishing boat just before sunrise. The horizon is painted with pale shades of blue and silver. The air is fresh and carries the clean smell of salt water. Around you, the sea stretches farther than the eye can see. There are no buildings, no roads, only water, sky, and the quiet hope that today's catch will be a good one. The fishermen speak in low voices. Some sip warm tea or coffee from metal cups. Others quietly check ropes and nets. No one knows exactly what waits beneath the surface. That has always been part of fishing. It is a lesson in patience, a lesson in trust, a lesson in accepting what nature chooses to give. Below the boat, hidden beneath the rolling waves, thousands of Atlantic cod move through the cold water. They do not know that people above depend upon them. They simply follow ancient paths that their species has followed for countless generations. Every year, they swim between feeding grounds and spawning grounds. Every year, they repeat the same journey. Long before people built great cities. Long before ships crossed oceans. Long before maps showed the shape of the world. The cod were already here, swimming quietly through the northern seas. The Atlantic cod is not the largest fish in the ocean, nor is it the fastest. It is not brightly colored. It does not leap dramatically from the water like a dolphin. At first glance, it seems rather ordinary. Its body is long and strong. Its back is usually a soft olive or gray-green. Its sides fade into lighter shades. Its belly is pale, almost white. Along each side runs a gentle, light-colored line. Beneath its chin hangs a small whisker-like barbel, which helps it sense food on the ocean floor. It is a simple fish. Yet sometimes, the simplest things become the most important. Cod thrive in cold water. The North Atlantic provides exactly the environment they need. The ocean currents carry fresh nutrients. Small fish, shellfish, and other creatures provide plenty of food. These rich waters allow cod to grow well. Some become surprisingly large. A fully grown cod can weigh many kilograms. The biggest are impressive enough to fill an entire family's table many times over. For fishing communities, this makes cod especially valuable. One successful catch can provide food for many people. Imagine a fisherman carefully lifting a cod from the net. The fish glistens in the early morning light. Water drips back into the sea. The fisherman handles it with quiet respect. He knows that this fish represents much more than a meal. It may help pay for clothing. It may help repair the boat. It may provide money for a child's education. It may help a family survive another winter. In places like Iceland, every fish truly matters. Centuries ago, food could not be shipped quickly around the world. There were no refrigerated trucks, no freezer warehouses, no airplanes carrying fresh seafood across continents. People needed foods that could last. Cod was perfect for this. Fresh cod was delicious, but preserved cod became even more valuable. The process was simple, though it required care and patience. The fish was cleaned soon after being caught. Then it was salted or dried. Sometimes both methods were used together. Salt drew moisture from the flesh. Cold northern winds completed the drying process. When finished, the cod became firm, light, and remarkably durable. Properly prepared dried cod could remain edible for many months, sometimes even longer. This changed everything. Merchants could transport it across great distances. Sailors could carry it on long voyages. Families could store it through difficult winters. Kings could feed armies. Explorers could survive long journeys. Monasteries could rely on it during seasons of fasting. One simple fish quietly connected people across Europe. Imagine a busy marketplace several hundred years ago. Wooden stalls line a narrow street. Merchants greet customers with friendly smiles. The air carries the mixed scents of bread, cheese, herbs, and smoked meats. Among these goods hangs dried cod. Travelers recognize it immediately. Some purchase only a small piece. Others buy enough to feed an entire household. The fish may have traveled hundreds or even thousands of kilometers before reaching this market. It began its journey in the cold waters near Iceland. Now it rests on a table far away, waiting to become someone's supper. Trade creates invisible connections between distant places. A fisherman in Iceland may never meet the family who eventually eats his catch in another country. Yet their lives are quietly connected. The sea makes such connections possible. As centuries pass, demand for cod continues to grow. Europe's population slowly increases. Cities become larger. More people need reliable food. Cod remains one of the best choices. It is nutritious. It is filling. It stores well. It can be prepared in many different ways. Some families boil it. Others bake it. Some mix it with vegetables. Others add it to soups and stews. Recipes change from country to country, but cod appears on tables almost everywhere. In Britain, fish becomes an important part of everyday meals. In Iceland, it remains the foundation of the national economy. In Portugal, salted cod, known as bacalhau, becomes so beloved that people create hundreds of recipes for it. In Spain, Italy, France, and many other parts of Europe, preserved cod is also welcomed into kitchens. The humble fish travels farther than most people ever will. It quietly becomes one of the world's first truly international foods. Imagine the docks of Reykjavik in the early morning. Fishing boats return with their catches. Workers unload baskets filled with shining cod. Nearby, others prepare the fish for drying or salting. Everything moves steadily. No one wastes time. Fresh fish must be handled quickly. Yet there is no panic. Everyone knows their role. Some clean the fish. Some stack them carefully. Others prepare barrels for export. The work is hard, but it is familiar. Many families have done it for generations. Children grow up watching these routines. As they become older, they join the work themselves. Fishing becomes part of their identity. It is not simply employment. It is tradition. Across the sea, British ports tell a similar story. Large trawlers arrive after long voyages. Dockworkers wait patiently. Merchants examine the day's catch. Railway workers prepare trains that will carry fresh fish to London, Manchester, Birmingham, and many other cities. Within hours, fish caught hundreds of kilometers away begin their journey across Britain. People eating dinner may never think about where their meal began. Yet behind every piece of cod lies the work of countless hands. The sailors, the net makers, the shipbuilders, the dockworkers, the merchants, the railway workers, the shopkeepers, the cooks. One fish supports an entire chain of lives. This is one reason why cod becomes so important. It feeds more than stomachs. It feeds economies. As the 20th century arrives, technology transforms fishing once again. Ships become larger than ever before. Diesel engines replace many older steam engines. Powerful winches pull heavy nets from deep water. Radio allows ships to communicate over great distances. Navigation becomes more accurate. Fishing fleets can remain at sea for weeks instead of days. Each improvement seems like progress. Each improvement allows fishermen to catch more fish. For a time, everyone celebrates. Larger catches mean larger profits. Businesses expand. Ports become busier. New boats are built. Communities prosper. Yet beneath the surface of the sea, another story quietly unfolds. Nature has its own limits. Cod reproduce steadily, but not endlessly. If too many are caught before they can produce young, future generations become smaller. This change happens slowly, almost invisibly. No single fishing trip reveals the problem. One season may still seem successful. The next appears ordinary. Only after many years do patterns begin to emerge. Some experienced fishermen quietly notice that they must travel farther than their fathers once did. Others remark that the largest fish seem less common. These observations are shared over cups of tea in warm kitchens. They are discussed on docks while repairing nets. At first, few people worry. The ocean still feels endless. Surely there will always be more fish. After all, there always have been. But governments begin paying closer attention. Scientists also begin studying fish populations more carefully. They count catches. They examine breeding patterns. They estimate how many cod remain beneath the waves. Their findings suggest something important. The fish are not disappearing overnight, but they cannot support unlimited fishing forever. This realization arrives quietly, not as a sudden discovery, but as a slow understanding that grows year after year. For Iceland, this news is especially serious. Unlike many larger countries, Iceland has relatively few natural resources. There are no vast forests, no great coal mines, no enormous farmland stretching to the horizon. The sea is its greatest treasure. If the cod disappear, much of the nation's economy could disappear with them. That possibility is difficult to ignore. Imagine an Icelandic family gathered around their dinner table in the early 1950s. The meal is simple: fresh bread, butter, fish, warm soup. Outside, the wind blows gently against the windows. Inside, conversation turns toward fishing. Someone mentions that foreign boats seem to be appearing more often. Another wonders whether there will still be enough fish for future generations. No one speaks with anger, only quiet concern. Across the sea, a British fishing family shares a similar meal. They also discuss the future. Their fathers and grandfathers have always fished these northern waters. To them, sailing near Iceland feels perfectly normal. It has been part of life for generations. They cannot imagine suddenly being told they should no longer fish there. Both families care deeply about the sea. Both depend upon cod. Both hope to protect their future. Neither realizes that these hopes will soon lead their governments toward one of the most unusual international disputes of the 20th century. The cod itself continues swimming, unaware of the conversations taking place above. It follows the currents. It searches for food. It prepares for another season. Nature remains wonderfully simple. Human decisions, however, are becoming more complicated. As the night grows quieter still, we will soon discover how Iceland began asking an important question. What if the waters surrounding the island should belong first to the people who depended on them most? That gentle question would slowly ripple across the North Atlantic, reaching every fishing village from Reykjavik to Grimsby, and setting the stage for the first chapter of the remarkable story known as the Cod Wars. The night has grown a little quieter now. The stars seem brighter above the calm North Atlantic. The sea continues its slow and endless breathing, wave after wave, just as it has for thousands of years. Imagine yourself standing once again on the western coast of Iceland. The morning has not yet fully arrived. A faint silver light rests on the horizon. The fishing village is peaceful. Only a few lanterns glow in the windows of nearby homes. A dog stretches awake outside a small farmhouse. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster announces the coming day. Along the harbor, fishing boats rise and fall with the gentle movement of the water. The ropes tied to the wooden docks creak softly. A few seabirds glide low across the quiet bay. The smell of salt, seaweed, and fresh wood fills the cool air. Soon the fishermen begin to arrive. One after another, they walk slowly toward their boats. Many wear thick wool sweaters knitted by family members. Heavy boots protect them from the cold docks. Warm hats cover their ears against the northern wind. Their hands already carry the marks of many years spent working with ropes, hooks, and rough fishing nets. Some greet one another with quiet smiles. Others simply nod. There is no need for many words. They have shared this routine countless times before. One fisherman checks the engine. Another carefully folds a length of rope. Someone else loads fresh drinking water and simple food for the day's journey. A pot of strong coffee is placed safely inside the cabin. Before long, the engines begin to rumble softly. One by one, the boats leave the harbor. The village slowly disappears behind them. Ahead lies the open sea. For generations, this daily journey has been the heart of Icelandic life. Fishing is not simply one industry among many. It is the foundation upon which much of the country stands. By the middle of the 20th century, Iceland is still a relatively small nation. Its population is modest. Many families know one another through relatives, neighbors, or shared work. The country has made great progress in recent decades. Roads are improving. Schools are growing. Modern hospitals are becoming more common. New businesses are opening. Yet one thing remains constant. Fish pay for much of it. Every successful fishing season helps support schools. It helps build roads. It helps improve harbors. It helps create jobs beyond the fishing boats themselves. The fish caught in Icelandic waters travel far beyond the island. Ships carry them across Europe. Markets in Britain, Germany, France, Spain, Portugal, and many other countries welcome Icelandic cod. Each shipment brings valuable income home. Many people begin referring to cod as Iceland's gold beneath the sea. Unlike gold buried in mountains, this treasure swims freely through the cold Atlantic waters. It renews itself each year if it is given enough time. That final thought slowly becomes more important. Imagine an office in Reykjavik during the late 1940s. Outside the window, the sea is calm. Inside, several government officials sit around a wooden table. Maps of Iceland cover the walls. Charts showing fishing catches lie neatly arranged before them. Some papers contain reports from fishermen. Others contain scientific studies. The room is quiet. One official studies the numbers carefully. He notices something troubling. Fishing fleets from many countries are catching enormous amounts of cod near Iceland. British trawlers, German vessels, French boats, Belgian fishermen, others as well. Each nation believes these waters are open to everyone. That has long been the custom. For centuries, much of the sea beyond a narrow strip along the coast has been considered international water. Ships from many countries fish there freely. No one has seriously questioned this practice for generations. But now the ships are changing. They are no longer small sailing boats. Many are enormous steel trawlers. Powerful diesel engines allow them to remain at sea much longer than older vessels. Mechanical winches pull heavy nets from great depths. Some nets are so large they could cover several football fields. Each voyage brings back catches that would have seemed impossible only a few decades earlier. To many fishing companies, this is wonderful news. To Iceland, it begins to look worrying. Imagine speaking with an elderly Icelandic fisherman during these years. He has spent nearly his entire life on the sea. His face is weathered by wind and salt. His hands are rough from decades of work. He remembers fishing with his father in small wooden boats. Back then the ocean seemed endless. The fish always returned. Now he notices something different. Sometimes the boats must travel farther before finding large schools of cod. Sometimes the catches are smaller. Not always, but often enough to raise quiet questions. He does not blame anyone. He simply wonders whether too many fish are being taken. He shares these thoughts with younger fishermen. Some agree. Others remain hopeful. No one knows exactly what the future will bring. Meanwhile, Icelandic scientists begin conducting more careful studies. Marine biology is becoming an increasingly important field. Researchers spend long hours collecting information. They examine fish sizes. They study breeding seasons. They estimate how many cod inhabit different fishing grounds. The work requires patience. The ocean does not easily reveal its secrets. Years of careful observation are needed before reliable conclusions can be drawn. Slowly, a picture begins to emerge. The cod population remains healthy, but it is not unlimited. If fishing continues increasing year after year, future stocks could decline. This possibility concerns both scientists and government leaders. For Iceland, protecting the cod means protecting the country's future. Imagine another quiet evening in Reykjavik. A family gathers around the dinner table. The meal is simple but comforting. Fresh cod, boiled potatoes, dark rye bread, butter, warm soup. The radio plays softly in the background. The evening news mentions discussions about fishing rights. The children pay little attention. To them, fishing has always been part of life. But the adults listen carefully. They understand that these conversations may shape the future of the nation. Across Iceland, similar discussions take place in homes, cafes, harbors, and village meeting halls. People are not calling for conflict. They are not seeking arguments with other countries. Instead, they ask a simple question. How can Iceland protect the fish that everyone depends upon? At this time, international law regarding the sea is still developing. For centuries, many countries recognized only a very narrow coastal zone as belonging to a nation. Traditionally, this limit extended about 3 nautical miles from shore. Why 3 miles? The answer reaches back hundreds of years. One old idea suggested that a country controlled only as far as it could defend from land. Long ago, the range of a coastal cannon was roughly 3 nautical miles. Beyond that distance, the sea was generally considered open to everyone. It was a practical rule for an earlier age. But technology had changed. Fishing boats no longer relied on sails alone. Engines carried them much farther. Modern equipment allowed them to catch far more fish than anyone in earlier centuries could have imagined. The old rules no longer seemed to match the new world. Iceland was not alone in noticing this. Several coastal nations around the world had begun asking similar questions. How much of the sea should belong to the country nearest to it? How could marine life be protected? How could fishing remain sustainable for future generations? These questions did not have simple answers. Different countries reached different conclusions. Those with large fishing fleets often preferred wider access to international waters. Countries whose economies depended heavily on nearby fish stocks often wanted greater control. Both viewpoints seemed reasonable from their own perspectives. That is what made the issue so difficult. Imagine an Icelandic government minister standing beside a harbor one quiet afternoon. Fishing boats are returning from another day's work. The air smells of salt and fresh fish. Children wave to fathers coming home. Workers unload today's catch. The minister watches silently. He understands that these boats represent much more than business. They represent families, communities, schools, hospitals, the future of an entire country. If the cod disappear, everything connected to them becomes uncertain. That realization weighs heavily on many leaders. As the early 1950s continue, Iceland begins taking careful steps toward expanding control over nearby fishing waters. The decisions are not made quickly. Many meetings are held. Experts offer advice. Scientists present evidence. Fishermen share their experiences. Lawmakers debate possible solutions. Every choice carries consequences. Expanding fishing limits could help protect cod. But it could also upset countries whose fishermen had worked these waters for generations. Britain is especially important. British trawlers have long depended on the rich fishing grounds surrounding Iceland. Entire communities in ports such as Hull and Grimsby rely on those catches. Thousands of British jobs are connected to the northern fisheries. Ship captains, engineers, fish merchants, dock workers, railway employees, and shopkeepers all benefit from successful voyages. To many British fishermen, the waters near Iceland feel almost like old friends. Their fathers had sailed there. Their grandfathers had sailed there. They never imagined that access might one day become restricted. Meanwhile, Iceland sees the situation differently. To Icelanders, these waters lie immediately beside their homeland. The fish reproduce there. The fish support Icelandic families. Protecting them seems not only sensible but necessary. Neither side views itself as unreasonable. Neither wishes for conflict. Both believe they are acting fairly. This quiet difference in perspective slowly grows larger. Like two ships traveling across the same sea on slightly different courses. At first they appear far apart, but with enough time, their paths slowly move closer together. The sea itself remains peaceful. The cod continue their ancient migrations beneath the waves. Seabirds still dive for their meals. The wind still sings softly through the rigging of fishing boats. Nature continues its timeless rhythm. Yet above the water, people are beginning to draw new lines on maps. Invisible lines. Lines that cannot be seen from a ship's deck. Lines that exist only in laws and agreements. Soon, those invisible lines will become some of the most important boundaries in the North Atlantic. And although no one knows it yet, they will mark the beginning of a remarkable chapter in modern history. A chapter in which diplomacy, patience, and determination will matter just as much as ships and fishing nets. For now, let us simply watch the evening settle over Iceland once more. The fishing boats return home. The harbor grows quiet. Warm lights appear in cottage windows. Families gather around their tables. Outside, the sea continues its endless song. It has witnessed countless generations before these. It will witness countless more. And as the stars slowly brighten above the cold northern ocean, our own journey moves gently toward the moment when Iceland will make its first bold decision to protect the waters surrounding its shores. That decision, though peaceful in its intention, will soon be heard far beyond the island itself. It will reach the ports of Britain. It will reach government offices in London. And it will quietly begin the first chapter of what history would remember as the Cod Wars. As the quiet night continues, let us remain beside the cool waters of the North Atlantic for a little longer. The sea has not changed. The waves still rise and fall with gentle patience. The wind still carries the familiar scent of salt. The seabirds still glide above the surface, searching for their morning meal. Nature follows its own steady rhythm, just as it always has. Yet among people, something is slowly changing. Not with loud voices, not with sudden arguments, but through careful conversations, thoughtful meetings, and quiet decisions made in offices many miles away from the sea itself. Imagine yourself in the mid-1950s. The world is changing quickly. Only a decade has passed since the end of the Second World War. Many countries are rebuilding their cities and economies. New technologies appear almost every year. Factories produce more goods. Ships become stronger. Engines become more reliable. The oceans, once crossed mainly by sailing vessels, are now filled with powerful motor ships capable of traveling farther than ever before. Fishing is changing as well. Imagine standing on the deck of a modern British trawler as dawn begins to brighten the eastern sky. This vessel is much larger than the wooden fishing boats of earlier generations. Its steel hull feels solid beneath your feet. A diesel engine hums steadily below deck. Large winches stand ready beside enormous drums of heavy cable. Nearby, thick fishing nets are folded with great care. Everything has been designed to make fishing more efficient. The crew members move calmly around the deck. Each person knows exactly what must be done. One checks the engine gauges. Another prepares the navigation charts. Someone else inspects the trawl doors, large metal plates that help keep the fishing net spread open beneath the water. The captain studies the weather forecast. He has made this journey many times before. His father made it before him. Perhaps even his grandfather did as well. For the crew, this voyage feels familiar. It is simply another fishing trip to the rich waters near Iceland. No one aboard imagines that history is quietly changing around them. The ship leaves the harbor. The coastline slowly disappears into the distance. Soon there is nothing but sea. Days pass peacefully. Morning follows evening. The crew settles into their routine. Meals are simple but filling. Hot tea warms cold hands. Stories are shared during quiet moments. Some men read newspapers. Others write short letters that will be mailed when they next reach port. Many simply stand on deck, watching the endless horizon. Life at sea teaches patience. There is no need to hurry. The ocean decides the pace. Eventually, the trawler reaches the familiar fishing grounds. The crew prepares the great net. The heavy trawl doors splash into the water. Steel cables tighten. Slowly, the enormous net sinks beneath the waves. Below the surface, it opens like a great underwater mouth, moving steadily across the seabed. For several hours, the ship continues forward at a careful speed. Then comes the signal. The winches begin turning. Steel cables tighten once again. The net slowly rises toward the surface. Everyone watches. No matter how many times they have done this, there is always a small feeling of hope. Will the catch be large? Or will today's work bring only a few fish? Soon the answer appears. Silver shapes shimmer beneath the water. The net is full. Cod. Hundreds upon hundreds of cod. The crew smiles quietly. No cheering. No excitement. Just the quiet satisfaction of honest work rewarded. The fish are sorted with practiced hands. Some are placed into chilled storage. Others are prepared for processing. Every fish represents income. Every successful haul helps support families waiting at home. Far away in Britain, entire towns depend upon voyages like this one. Imagine walking through the busy docks of Hull during these years. The harbor is alive from early morning until late evening. Fishing vessels arrive almost every day. Dockworkers unload thousands of fish. Porters carry heavy crates. Auctioneers call out prices in quick but familiar voices. Merchants inspect the day's catch with experienced eyes. Railway workers hurry to load refrigerated train cars. Within hours, fresh cod begins traveling across Britain. Restaurants, fish markets, small neighborhood shops, large city wholesalers. Everyone waits for the day's delivery. The fishing industry supports tens of thousands of people. Many never set foot on a fishing boat. Yet their work depends entirely upon those who do. Shipbuilders, engine mechanics, net makers, ice factories, box manufacturers, railway companies, truck drivers, market sellers, even newspaper vendors benefit from the busy life of the ports. Fishing is like the roots of a great tree. Many branches grow from it. If one root becomes weak, the entire tree feels the change. Meanwhile, across the sea in Iceland, leaders continue studying the future carefully. Government officials receive new scientific reports. Marine researchers present fresh observations. Experienced fishermen continue sharing stories from the water. Some believe fish numbers are beginning to decline. Others remain uncertain. The evidence is not always simple. Nature rarely provides easy answers. Fish populations naturally rise and fall over time. Storms influence catches. Ocean temperatures change. Migration patterns shift. Scientists must examine many years of information before drawing conclusions. Still, one idea becomes increasingly clear. Modern fishing technology has become incredibly powerful. Ships can now catch far more fish than earlier generations ever imagined possible. If every nation continues increasing its catches year after year, the cod population may eventually struggle to recover. This possibility worries Iceland deeply. Imagine a meeting inside a government building in Reykjavik. Large maps cover one wall. Colored pencils mark fishing grounds around the island. Charts show estimated cod populations. Officials listen quietly as scientists explain their findings. One researcher points toward the map. He speaks calmly. The fish closest to Iceland spend much of their lives here, he explains. If these breeding grounds are protected, future generations of cod may remain healthy. The room grows thoughtful. No one wishes to stop fishing. Fishing is the nation's livelihood. But everyone understands that careful management may become necessary. The discussion continues for hours. Outside, fishing boats continue their daily work, unaware of the decisions slowly taking shape. Around the world, international law regarding the sea remains uncertain. Different countries hold different opinions. For centuries, many governments accepted the traditional 3-mile territorial limit. Beyond that, the sea belonged to everyone. But new questions have appeared. Should countries have greater control over nearby fishing grounds? How can marine resources be protected? Who decides where one nation's rights end and another's begin? There are no simple international rules yet. Many governments begin proposing different ideas. Some support wider fishing zones. Others prefer keeping the traditional system. Each country naturally considers its own interests. Countries with large distant water fishing fleets often favor open access. Countries that rely heavily on nearby fish stocks often support greater national control. Neither position seems unreasonable. Each reflects different experiences and different needs. Imagine two experienced fishermen meeting in a harbor cafe. One is British. The other is Icelandic. They share warm coffee while waiting for the weather to improve. Their conversation is friendly. They speak about storms, about engines, about families, about children growing older. Eventually, the discussion turns toward fishing limits. The Icelandic fisherman says quietly, "We worry about the future of our fish." The British fisherman nods thoughtfully. "So do we. We hope there will still be enough for our grandchildren." "So do we." Neither man wishes the other any harm. Both simply want to continue the work they love. This simple conversation reflects the larger situation perfectly. The disagreement is not born from hatred. It grows from two different hopes for the future. Both believe they are protecting something valuable. As the months pass, newspapers begin publishing more stories about fishing rights. Government officials exchange letters. Diplomats attend meetings. Lawyers study old treaties. Scientists continue gathering evidence. Nothing dramatic happens overnight. History often moves quietly, like the tide, almost unnoticed until much later. Out at sea, however, fishermen continue working exactly as they always have. The cod do not know that maps are being redrawn. The seabirds do not recognize international boundaries. The whales swimming through northern waters ignore human laws completely. Nature remains wonderfully indifferent to politics. Only people create borders. Imagine standing once more on the deck of a trawler as evening approaches. The sun sinks slowly toward the horizon. Golden light spreads across the calm water. The engine hums steadily. The day's work is finished. The crew gathers for supper. Someone tells a funny story. Another writes in a small notebook. One sailor quietly looks toward the distant outline of Iceland. To him, it is simply another coastline beside another fishing ground. He has no reason to think otherwise. Yet in Reykjavik, government leaders are preparing to take a step that will surprise many around the world. They believe it is necessary. Others will disagree. No one intends for this disagreement to become famous. No one imagines that historians will one day call it a war, especially because almost everyone involved hopes to avoid real violence. Still, important changes are coming. Invisible lines will soon stretch farther into the sea. Fishing boats that yesterday worked without concern will tomorrow find themselves navigating not only waves and weather, but also new rules and uncertain expectations. The quiet North Atlantic is about to enter a new chapter. Not because the sea has changed, not because the cod have changed, but because people have begun thinking differently about how the sea should be shared. As darkness gently settles across the water once again, the lighthouse beams begin sweeping slowly across the waves. Fishing boats turn on their navigation lights. Harbors prepare for another peaceful night. Families wait for loved ones to return home. Everything feels calm. Yet beneath that calm surface, history is gathering like a distant morning tide. Soon, Iceland will make a decision that reaches far beyond its own shores. A decision made not with anger, but with determination. A decision that will begin the first Cod War. And that is where our quiet journey will continue next. The night has settled comfortably around us now. The sea is darker than before, yet it is no less peaceful. Moonlight spreads gently across the surface of the North Atlantic, turning the rolling waves into ribbons of silver. Somewhere in the distance, a lighthouse slowly turns, sending its beam across the quiet water. Fishing boats continue their patient work beneath the stars. To the fishermen aboard them, tonight feels much like any other. The engine hums steadily. The wind whistles softly through the rigging. The smell of salt fills the cool air. Far below, schools of cod continue their ancient journey, unaware that history is quietly unfolding above them. Let us imagine that it is the summer of 1958. Across Europe, life is gradually becoming more modern. Families are buying new household appliances. Television is beginning to appear in more homes. Roads are improving. Air travel is slowly becoming more common. The world is changing. Yet on the cold waters surrounding Iceland, daily life still follows the familiar rhythm of fishing. Before dawn, boats leave the harbor. By evening, they return. The sea continues to provide. But beneath this peaceful routine, an important decision is about to be made. For many years, Icelandic leaders have listened carefully to fishermen, scientists, economists, and legal experts. Again and again, they have asked the same quiet question. How can we protect the fish that support our country? The answer they have reached is simple in principle, though not in practice. They believe Iceland should control a larger area of sea surrounding the island. At that time, Iceland's fishing limit extended 4 nautical miles from its coastline. This had already been an increase from the older 3-mile tradition that many countries had followed for centuries. Now Iceland wishes to extend that limit much farther. 12 nautical miles. Today, such a distance may not sound especially large. But in 1958, it represents a major change. Imagine looking at a map of Iceland. Around the island lies a broad ring of cold Atlantic water. Within that ring are some of the richest fishing grounds in Europe. If the new 12-mile limit is accepted, many foreign fishing boats will no longer be allowed to work in areas they have visited for generations. To Iceland, this seems necessary. To others, especially Britain, it seems deeply troubling. Neither side believes it is acting unfairly. That is what makes the situation so complicated. Now imagine a quiet morning in Reykjavik. Government officials gather inside a meeting room. Large windows overlook the harbor. Fishing boats can be seen rocking gently beside the docks. Stacks of carefully prepared documents rest upon the table. After many discussions and careful planning, Iceland announces its decision. Beginning on the 1st of September, 1958, the nation's fishing limit will extend to 12 nautical miles from the coast. The announcement is calm. There are no grand speeches, no celebrations, only a clear statement of national policy. For Iceland, this is not meant to challenge other countries. It is meant to protect the future of Icelandic fishing. News of the decision quickly spreads beyond the island. Radio stations report the announcement. Newspapers print headlines. Government offices across Europe begin receiving messages. In London, officials read the news with great concern. Britain has one of the world's largest distant water fishing fleets. Hundreds of British trawlers regularly fish near Iceland. Thousands of families depend on those voyages. If British vessels lose access to these waters, many communities could face serious economic hardship. Imagine the docks of Hull on the morning after the announcement. The harbor is as busy as ever. Men unload fish. Forklifts carry heavy crates. Seagulls cry overhead. Yet among the ordinary sounds, conversations have changed. Small groups gather beside the ships. Someone unfolds a newspaper. Another points to the headline. Iceland extends fishing limits. The words seem almost unbelievable. Some fishermen shake their heads quietly. Others read every line carefully. One captain folds the newspaper and slips it into his coat pocket. He has sailed to Icelandic waters for most of his adult life. His father did the same before him. He cannot imagine being told that those familiar fishing grounds are suddenly closed. The men continue preparing their boats. There is still work to be done. No one knows exactly what will happen next. Across Britain, government officials begin holding meetings of their own. Maps are spread across large tables. Legal experts study international law. Diplomats exchange messages with Iceland. The British government does not recognize Iceland's new 12-mile limit. According to Britain's view, the traditional rules of the sea still apply. British fishing vessels, they argue, should continue working in waters they have long used. Both governments believe international law supports their position. Both governments act calmly. Neither wishes to create hostility. Still, their disagreement cannot simply be ignored. Imagine yourself aboard an Icelandic Coast Guard vessel. It is not a warship in the traditional sense. Its crew members are trained professionals whose daily work includes search and rescue, helping ships in distress, enforcing fishing regulations, and protecting Iceland's waters. They are accustomed to difficult weather. They know these seas intimately. Their vessel moves steadily through the cold Atlantic. The crew has received new instructions. Foreign fishing vessels found inside Iceland's newly declared fishing zone are to be informed of the new regulations. The goal is clear communication, not conflict. As the Coast Guard patrols the water, the officers keep careful watch. The sea remains peaceful. Fishing boats continue working. Some are Icelandic. Others fly foreign flags. One morning, the Coast Guard sights a British trawler operating within the new 12-mile limit. The Icelandic captain orders his vessel to approach slowly. There is no rushing, no dramatic chase. The patrol ship comes alongside at a respectful distance. Signals are exchanged. Using radio communication and signal flags, the Icelandic officers politely inform the British captain that he is fishing within Iceland's newly declared protected zone. The British captain listens carefully. He understands the message, but he also knows the instructions given by his own government. Britain does not recognize the new boundary. He believes he has the right to continue fishing. For several quiet moments, neither ship moves very much. The sea rolls gently beneath them. The officers speak calmly. Each man is doing his duty. Each is following orders. Neither wishes to provoke the other. Eventually, the British trawler continues its work. The Icelandic patrol carefully records the incident. Reports are sent back to Reykjavik. Similar encounters begin occurring more frequently. Most remain peaceful. Captains exchange messages. Patrol vessels observe. Fishing boats continue operating. The disagreement remains one of law rather than violence. Still, tension slowly grows. Imagine the atmosphere in Reykjavik during these weeks. People read newspapers with interest. Cafes are filled with quiet conversations. Fishermen discuss recent patrols while repairing their nets. Families wonder how foreign governments will respond. Many Icelanders feel proud that their small nation is standing up for what it believes is necessary. There is also uncertainty. Iceland depends on good relationships with other countries. No one wishes to damage those friendships. Across the sea, British fishing communities experience similar uncertainty. Ship owners worry about future voyages. Captains wonder where they will be allowed to fish. Families discuss the news around dinner tables. Some fear losing their livelihoods. Others hope a peaceful agreement can still be reached. In both countries, ordinary people simply hope for stability. The newspapers often use firm language, but everyday conversations remain thoughtful. The sea itself offers no opinion. The cod continue swimming. The tides continue rising and falling. The weather changes as it always has. Nature pays no attention to human disagreements. As autumn arrives, the North Atlantic grows colder. Storms become more frequent. Strong winds whip across the open sea. Even without political disagreements, fishing remains difficult. Crews must constantly watch the weather. Heavy waves test every ship. Rain lashes across the decks. Thick fog sometimes hides nearby vessels from view. In these conditions, every captain depends on skill and experience. Despite the growing disagreement over fishing limits, sailors still understand one unwritten rule. Anyone in danger at sea deserves help. If a vessel suffers engine trouble during a storm, nearby ships often assist, regardless of nationality. The sea has always demanded cooperation as much as competition. That tradition continues. An Icelandic patrol boat will gladly help a British crew facing danger. A British trawler will answer a distress call from an Icelandic fisherman. Politics may separate governments. The ocean often reminds sailors of their shared humanity. Meanwhile, diplomats continue working behind the scenes. Letters pass between London and Reykjavik. Meetings are held. Arguments are presented respectfully. Each side explains its legal position. Each hopes the other will reconsider. But no easy compromise appears. The First Cod War has begun. Yet calling it a war can still feel surprising. There are no armies facing one another. No bombing raids. No battlefields. Instead, there are maps, laws, fishing boats, Coast Guard patrols, diplomatic meetings, and thousands of ordinary people trying to continue their daily lives while governments search for answers. As evening slowly returns to the North Atlantic, the fishing boats head toward their harbors once more. Lights begin appearing along the Icelandic coast. Families wait at kitchen windows. Warm meals simmer on stoves. Children ask when their fathers will return. Life continues. Quietly, steadily, much as it always has. Yet everyone senses that something important has changed. The invisible line stretching 12 nautical miles from Iceland's shores now carries enormous meaning. Some see it as protection. Others see it as restriction. History has entered a new chapter. And in the weeks ahead, both Icelandic patrol ships and British fishing vessels will continue meeting upon these cold waters, each trying to carry out its duty while avoiding unnecessary conflict. The sea remains calm, but the questions surrounding it have only just begun. As the night grows deeper, let us remain upon the quiet waters of the North Atlantic. The moon hangs high above the sea. Its pale light stretches across the gentle wave like a long silver path. The wind is cool but not harsh. The steady sound of the engine blends with the soft splash of water against the hull. Everything feels peaceful. Imagine yourself stepping aboard an Icelandic Coast Guard ship during the autumn of 1958. It is early morning. The sky is still dark, with only the faintest glow appearing in the east. The harbor is calm. Small fishing boats rest quietly beside the docks, while the larger patrol vessel prepares for another day at sea. A few crew members have already been awake for hours. One checks the engine room. Another inspects the radio equipment. Someone carefully coils heavy ropes so they will be ready if needed. In the small galley, the cook begins preparing breakfast. The smell of fresh bread and hot coffee slowly spreads through the ship. One by one, the crew gathers around the table. The meal is simple. Warm porridge, slices of dark rye bread, butter, perhaps a little smoked fish. Strong coffee fills thick mugs that help warm cold hands. Conversation is quiet. Most of the men have worked together for years. There is no need for long discussions. A few words are enough. Someone comments on the weather forecast. Another mentions that the sea should remain fairly calm until evening. The captain quietly reviews the day's patrol route. Today's mission is much like yesterday's. Sail through Iceland's newly declared 12-mile fishing zone. Observe fishing activity. Speak politely with any foreign vessels operating inside the protected waters. Record everything carefully. Above all, avoid unnecessary confrontation. The Coast Guard has an important responsibility. Its purpose is not to fight. It is to protect. Imagine walking through the ship before departure. The bridge sits high above the deck, giving the captain a clear view of the surrounding sea. Large windows face forward. Navigation charts lie neatly, folded beside a compass. A radar screen turns slowly, quietly searching the horizon. Nearby, the radio operator adjusts headphones while listening for messages from other ships. Below deck, the engine room hums steadily. Large diesel engines provide reliable power for long patrols. Everything must work perfectly. A mechanical problem far from shore could quickly become dangerous. The engineers understand this well. They inspect every pipe, every valve, every gauge with patient care. Elsewhere, crew members prepare emergency equipment. Life jackets, rescue lines, medical supplies, firefighting gear, searchlights. Everything has its proper place. Most days, these items will never be used. But the sea is unpredictable. Preparation is part of respecting nature. At last, the captain gives the order. The mooring ropes are released. The engines increase their steady rhythm. Slowly, the patrol vessel leaves the harbor. The town grows smaller behind it. Ahead lies another long day upon the North Atlantic. As the ship moves farther from land, the air becomes noticeably colder. The wind carries tiny drops of seawater across the deck. Seabirds circle overhead before gradually disappearing toward the shore. Soon only open ocean surrounds the vessel. Hours pass quietly. Patrol work often requires patience more than action. Crew members take turns standing watch. Binoculars scan the horizon. The radar continues its silent sweep. Sometimes there is little to report. Only fishing boats working peacefully beneath wide northern skies. Sometimes whales appear in the distance. Their broad backs rise gently above the surface before disappearing beneath the waves once again. The crew always pauses to watch. Even experienced sailors never tire of seeing whales in their natural home. At other times, dolphins swim beside the ship. They seem almost playful, racing through the bow waves before vanishing back into the sea. These small moments bring quiet joy during long patrols. The ocean offers many beautiful surprises to those willing to watch patiently. By midday, the captain receives a radio message. A fishing vessel has reported several foreign trawlers working near the edge of Iceland's new fishing limit. The patrol ship gently changes course. There is no urgency, no alarm bells, simply another task to complete. After some time, dark shapes begin appearing on the horizon. Through binoculars, several fishing vessels become visible. Some fly Icelandic flags. Others fly British flags. Each vessel quietly continues its work. The patrol ship approaches at a respectful speed. The captain studies the position carefully. Navigation officers compare charts with the ship's current location. They calculate distances from the coastline. Accuracy matters. A mistake of even a small distance could lead to unnecessary disagreement. Satisfied with the calculations, the captain asks the radio operator to contact one of the British trawlers. The message is polite, clear, professional. This is the Icelandic Coast Guard. According to our position, your vessel is operating within Iceland's 12-mile fishing zone. A few moments pass. Then the British captain replies. His voice remains calm, respectful. He explains that, according to the instructions given by his own government, he intends to continue fishing. No raised voices. No insults. Only two professional sailors carrying out their responsibilities. The Icelandic officers carefully note the conversation in the ship's official logbook. Every patrol records the time, the weather, the names of vessels encountered, the positions observed. These detailed records may later be examined by government officials and diplomats. Accuracy is essential. The patrol continues. Sometimes the Coast Guard escorts foreign vessels from the protected area. Sometimes warnings are issued. Sometimes the encounter ends with nothing more than a polite exchange over the radio. Each situation is slightly different. The officers understand that their behavior reflects not only themselves, but their entire country. Professionalism matters. As afternoon slowly becomes evening, the weather begins to change. Dark clouds gather across the northern horizon. The wind strengthens. Small waves become larger. Rain begins falling in fine, cold drops. The deck grows slippery. Crew members pull heavy waterproof jackets tighter around themselves. The captain reduces speed slightly. Safety always comes first. Even during political disagreements, the sea remains everyone's greatest challenge. Nature does not care about national borders. It treats every sailor equally. Suddenly, another radio message arrives. A small Icelandic fishing boat has reported engine trouble several miles away. Without hesitation, the patrol vessel changes course. Protecting life at sea is always the highest priority. Within an hour, the troubled boat comes into view. Its crew waves thankfully as the larger patrol ship approaches. Engineers from the Coast Guard help diagnose the problem. A tow line is secured. Slowly, carefully, the disabled fishing boat is pulled toward the nearest safe harbor. The fishermen express their gratitude. The Coast Guard crew simply smiles. Helping others is part of the job. Whether enforcing fishing regulations or rescuing vessels in distress, the purpose remains the same: to keep the sea as safe as possible. As darkness settles completely, the patrol finally turns back toward Reykjavik. Lights from the harbor appear like tiny golden stars against the black coastline. The crew feels pleasantly tired. It has been a long day. Yet much of it has passed in quiet observation rather than excitement. This is the reality of most Coast Guard service. Long hours, careful attention, steady routines. Back at the harbor, the ship is secured alongside the dock. Engines fall silent. Only the gentle sound of water remains. The crew unloads supplies and completes paperwork before heading home. Some walk through quiet streets toward small houses where warm lights shine from the windows. Families greet them with smiles. Children run to hug fathers who have spent days at sea. A warm evening meal waits on the table. Perhaps fish soup, fresh bread, butter, steaming potatoes. Simple food after a long day always tastes especially good. Later that evening, many of the crew sit quietly in their homes. Some read newspapers reporting the latest discussions between Iceland and Britain. Others simply enjoy the peaceful comfort of family life. Tomorrow will likely bring another patrol, another careful conversation with foreign fishing vessels, another day spent protecting Iceland's waters while avoiding unnecessary conflict. The work requires patience, calm judgment, respect for both the law and for fellow sailors, regardless of nationality. It is not the kind of work that often appears in exciting stories. Yet it is important work. Quiet work. The kind of work that helps prevent disagreements from becoming something far more serious. As the night grows still, the harbor itself becomes peaceful once again. The patrol vessel rests gently beside the dock. Its crew sleeps. The fishing boats sleep as well. Only the lighthouse continues its endless watch, sending its beams slowly across the dark Atlantic. Far beyond the harbor, British trawlers continue working beneath the same stars. Their crews, too, prepare for another day upon the sea. Though their governments disagree, the men who sail these waters share much in common. They know the cold. They know the wind. They know the patience that fishing demands. And above all, they know that the sea belongs to no single person. It must always be treated with care and respect. As our quiet journey continues, we will soon step aboard one of those British trawlers and experience daily life through the eyes of the fishermen, whose families had depended upon Icelandic waters for generations. Their story is different, yet in many ways it is remarkably similar. The night has become wonderfully quiet. The sea stretches into darkness in every direction, while above it, countless stars shimmer softly across the northern sky. The lighthouse we left behind has long disappeared beyond the horizon. Now there is only the steady rhythm of the waves and the gentle hum of a fishing trawler making its way through the cold waters of the North Atlantic. Let us step aboard that vessel together. Imagine it is the late autumn of 1958. You are standing on the deck of a British fishing trawler that left the port of Hull several days ago. The journey has been long. The English coastline disappeared behind you long ago. Since then, the sea has become your entire world. Ahead, behind, to the left, and to the right, there is only water. The crew has settled into the quiet rhythm that every long voyage creates. Time feels different here. The hours are measured not by clocks alone, but by watches, meals, changing weather, and the slow cycle of lowering and raising the great fishing nets. Before the first hint of sunrise, the cook is already awake. In the small galley, he quietly prepares breakfast. The room is warm compared to the chilly deck outside. The smell of frying bacon mixes with fresh bread and strong tea. A kettle whistles softly on the stove. One by one, sleepy crew members enter the galley. Some rub tired eyes. Others stretch stiff shoulders after a few hours of sleep. They greet each other with quiet smiles. Many of these men have sailed together for years. They know one another's habits. One always drinks 2 cups of tea before speaking much. Another likes to read yesterday's newspaper one more time, even though everyone already knows the stories. A younger sailor carefully spreads butter across thick slices of bread, while listening to the older men exchange gentle jokes. The laughter is soft. Nothing is hurried. Life at sea teaches patience. After breakfast, warm coats, waterproof trousers, gloves, and heavy boots are pulled on once again. The cold air outside wakes everyone completely. The captain climbs to the bridge. He studies the horizon through binoculars. The sea is calm today. A gentle swell lifts the ship slowly up and down. The weather report received by radio during the night suggests that stronger winds may arrive tomorrow. For now, conditions are good. The captain nods to the first mate. It is time to prepare the nets. Out on deck, the crew moves carefully. Fishing aboard a large trawler requires teamwork. No one works alone. Every rope, cable, and net must be handled with attention. The great trawl net lies ready. It is enormous. When fully opened beneath the water, it stretches wider than many people imagine. The heavy trawl doors are lowered over the side. Steel cables slowly unwind from large drums. The net disappears beneath the waves. Soon it is moving silently across the seabed below. The engine maintains a steady speed. There is nothing to do now except wait. Waiting is one of the least visible parts of fishing, yet it occupies much of a fisherman's day. Some sailors clean the deck. Others repair small tiers in older nets. One crew member oils moving machinery. Another carefully sharpens knives that will later be used to clean the catch. The radio operator listens for weather reports and messages from nearby vessels. Every task matters. Even the smallest repair made today may prevent a larger problem tomorrow. Imagine standing quietly at the rail. The cold wind brushes against your face. Tiny drops of seawater sparkle briefly before disappearing. A few gulls follow the ship, gliding effortlessly upon invisible currents of air. Far in the distance, a whale lifts its broad back above the surface before slowly diving once more. The ocean seems endless. It is easy to understand why earlier generations believed its fish could never be exhausted. The sea appears far too vast for such a thing. After several hours, the captain gives a signal. The net will be brought aboard. The great winches begin turning. Steel cables tighten. The crew gathers quietly. Everyone watches the water. Soon the floats appear. Then the heavy net begins rising toward the surface. As it breaks through the waves, silver fish glisten in the pale afternoon light. The catch looks good. Perhaps not the largest the crew has ever seen, but certainly enough to make the day's work worthwhile. The cod tumble carefully onto the sorting deck. Each fish is handled efficiently. Years of experience have made every movement smooth and practiced. Some fish are packed in crushed ice. Others are cleaned immediately. Nothing is wasted. The sea has offered its gift. The crew accepts it with quiet gratitude. One of the older fishermen pauses for a moment. He holds a large cod in his hands. Its scales shine softly. He smiles to himself. "This one would have made my father proud," he says quietly. The younger sailors smile. Many aboard the ship come from fishing families. Some represent the third generation, others the fourth. Stories about fathers, grandfathers, and great-grandfathers are common aboard the trawler. Family history and fishing history often become the same story. During a short break, several crew members gather near the galley door, sheltering from the wind. One sailor lights a pipe. Another wraps both hands around a steaming mug of tea. Conversation turns toward home. Someone speaks about his daughter learning to ride a bicycle. Another mentions that his youngest son has just begun school. One man wonders whether the roof of his cottage has finally been repaired. These ordinary conversations are comforting. Even hundreds of miles from land, home remains close in the mind. Eventually, someone brings up the news from Iceland. The new 12-mile fishing limit has become the main topic aboard nearly every British trawler. The men discuss it calmly. One sailor says he cannot understand why the waters should suddenly be closed after so many years. Another replies that perhaps the Icelanders truly are worried about protecting the fish. A third quietly shrugs. "I'm just here to catch fish and get home safely." The others nod. Most fishermen think in practical terms. Politics belongs to governments. Fishing belongs to those who earn their living from the sea. Still, everyone understands that the decisions made in distant government offices may soon shape their future. If access to Icelandic waters becomes more difficult, where will they fish? Will there be enough cod elsewhere? Will their towns remain as busy as before? No one knows. The uncertainty lingers quietly in the background. As afternoon fades toward evening, another vessel appears on the horizon. Through binoculars, its outline becomes familiar. An Icelandic Coast Guard patrol ship. The British captain watches calmly. He has seen these patrols before. The Coast Guard vessel approaches at a steady pace. The radio crackles softly. A polite message is exchanged. The Icelandic officers explain that the British trawler is operating within Iceland's newly declared fishing zone. The British captain respectfully replies that he is following the instructions of his own government, which does not recognize the new limit. There is no shouting, no insults, no threats. Only two experienced captains expressing two different legal positions. The conversation ends courteously. The patrol vessel continues its watch. The trawler continues its fishing. The sea remains peaceful. For the younger crew members, these encounters feel unusual. For the older sailors, they are becoming part of daily life. One fisherman quietly remarks, "Funny, isn't it? Same sea, same fish, different maps." Another smiles gently. "The fish don't carry passports." A few men chuckle softly before returning to work. Humor often eases uncertainty. As evening settles over the North Atlantic, the temperature begins to fall. The sky turns shades of orange, pink, and deep blue. Clouds drift slowly across the western horizon. The day's final meal is served. A hearty stew warms everyone after hours spent in the cold. Fresh bread is passed around the table. Strong tea fills heavy mugs once more. The cook receives quiet compliments. Good food is always appreciated at sea. After supper, the pace slows. Some sailors play a quiet game of cards. Others write letters to their families. One man carefully records the day's catch in a small notebook. Another reads a well-worn novel by the light of a small lamp. The engine continues its steady rhythm beneath the floor. It becomes almost like a heartbeat for the ship. Many sailors later say they found it difficult to sleep ashore because they missed that familiar sound. Outside, the night grows darker. The stars return. Navigation lights from distant fishing boats appear as tiny points of white and green upon the horizon. Each light represents another crew, another family, another story unfolding quietly upon the sea. Some belong to British trawlers. Some belong to Icelandic fishing boats. Some belong to vessels from other nations. All are connected by the same ocean, the same weather, the same hope for a safe journey home. As the captain finishes his final inspection of the bridge before midnight, he gazes toward the dark outline of Iceland, barely visible beneath the starlight. He knows difficult days may lie ahead. Yet tonight the sea remains calm. Tomorrow will bring another sunrise, another haul of the nets, another careful meeting perhaps with an Icelandic patrol vessel. Such has become the rhythm of life during these first months of the Cod War. Not a war of battles, but a quiet contest of patience, law, determination, and respect. And beneath it all, the Atlantic continues breathing slowly, wave after wave, just as it always has. As our own gentle journey continues, we will soon leave the decks of the fishing boats behind for a while and step into the homes of the families waiting ashore. For every sailor who leaves the harbor, someone remains behind, watching the sea, hoping for a safe return. Their quiet story is just as important. The sea has carried us gently through another quiet day. Now the evening has returned once more. The sky above the North Atlantic has become a deep shade of blue, and one by one, stars begin to appear. Along the coast, small lights glow warmly from cottages, farmhouses, and fishermen's homes. From a distance, they look like tiny candles scattered across the landscape. For the men at sea, these lights represent home. For the families waiting on shore, they represent hope. Tonight, let us leave the fishing boats for a little while. Instead, let us walk slowly through the quiet streets of the community whose lives rise and fall with every tide. Imagine a small Icelandic fishing village during the late 1950s. The harbor is peaceful after sunset. Most of the boats have already returned. A few larger vessels remain at sea, their crews continuing their work through the night. The wooden docks are damp from the evening mist. Fishing nets hang neatly from poles, drying in the cool northern air. The smell of salt water mixes with the gentle scent of wood smoke drifting from nearby homes. Inside one modest house, a family prepares supper. A mother stirs a pot of fish soup over the stove. Steam rises slowly toward the ceiling. Fresh rye bread rests on the table beside a small dish of butter. A kettle whistles softly. The youngest child sets out bowls, while an older brother quietly folds fishing clothes that will be needed tomorrow. Life follows familiar routines. Outside, the wind brushes softly against the windows. Inside, warmth fills every room. The family has lived this way for generations. Fishing is not only the father's occupation. It shapes the rhythm of the entire household. When the weather is calm, everyone sleeps a little easier. When storms arrive, even ordinary tasks become heavier with quiet concern. The sea is generous, but it always asks for respect. The children understand this from an early age. They know not to fear the sea. They know to honor it. At bedtime, stories are often told about grandfathers who crossed these waters long before engines replaced sails. Some stories speak of remarkable catches. Others tell of difficult winters. Many end with gratitude for safe returns. These stories become part of family history. Imagine an elderly grandmother sitting beside the fire, with knitting needles resting gently in her hands. She has watched sons and grandsons sail away countless times. Each departure feels familiar, yet each one carries the same silent wish. May they return safely. She rarely speaks these words aloud. She does not need to. Everyone in the room understands them already. Meanwhile, in another part of the village, several fishermen's wives gather together after supper. They mend sweaters, repair gloves, and share quiet conversation. The topic naturally turns toward recent news. One woman mentions seeing an Icelandic Coast Guard ship leaving the harbor that morning. Another says her husband heard that several British trawlers had been working near the new fishing limit. There is curiosity. There is concern. But there is very little anger. Most families understand that the British fishermen are simply doing the work they have always done, just as Icelandic fishermen are doing theirs. The disagreement belongs to governments. Ordinary people continue living ordinary lives. Across the sea, more than 1,000 kilometers away, another evening unfolds in the busy port city of Hull. The streets are larger here. The harbor is filled with many more vessels. Warehouses line the waterfront. Railway tracks stretch toward the docks. Yet despite the city's greater size, the feeling inside many homes is remarkably similar. Imagine walking down a quiet street lined with brick houses. Warm yellow light shines through lace curtains. A bicycle leans against a garden gate. Somewhere nearby, a radio plays gentle music. Inside one house, a mother helps her youngest daughter finish schoolwork before bedtime. Her husband has been away at sea for nearly 2 weeks. The little girl asks the same question she asks almost every evening. When will Dad come home? Her mother smiles gently. Soon, if the weather stays kind. It is the answer she has given many times before. Fishing voyages rarely follow exact schedules. Storms can delay a return. A larger catch may keep a vessel at sea a little longer. Mechanical repairs sometimes become necessary. Families learn patience. They measure time differently from others. Instead of saying someone will return on Thursday, they often say, when the fishing is finished. In another house nearby, an elderly man quietly reads the evening newspaper. He spent 40 years aboard fishing trawlers before retiring. His hands still carry the roughness of decades spent handling ropes and nets. The newspaper contains another article about Iceland's fishing limits. He reads every word carefully. His son is currently working aboard a trawler somewhere near Iceland. The older man understands both sides of the disagreement. He knows why British fishermen wish to continue working these waters. He also understands why Iceland wants to protect its fish. He folds the newspaper thoughtfully. Some problems, he reflects, are not easily solved. At the local fish market, business continues much as always. Customers browse the day's catch. Merchants greet familiar faces. Cod remains one of the most popular choices. Many people never stop to consider where today's fish was caught. They simply trust that tomorrow there will be more. Only those closest to the industry sense how uncertain the future has become. Farther north in Grimsby, another great fishing port, the harbor remains busy from dawn until dusk. Children often walk to the docks after school. They enjoy watching the trawlers arrive. Great cranes lift heavy loads. Dockworkers move quickly but carefully. Seagulls swoop overhead, calling loudly as they search for scraps. For many children, these sights are completely ordinary. Fishing is simply part of everyday life. Some dream of becoming captains one day. Others imagine working in shipyards like their fathers or uncles. Few realize that the industry supporting their communities may soon face profound changes. Back in Iceland, autumn slowly gives way to winter. The days grow shorter. Darkness arrives earlier each afternoon. Snow begins covering the mountains. Fishing continues despite the colder weather. Life must go on. One evening, a family gathers around the radio. The announcer speaks calmly about recent diplomatic discussions with Britain. The adults listen closely. The children pay little attention. Instead, they quietly build wooden boats upon the floor. Without realizing it, they copy the work of their fathers. The sea shapes imagination as much as livelihood. Outside, the northern lights begin to dance gently across the sky. Green ribbons of light move silently above the snowy hills. The family steps outside for a few moments to admire them. Even during uncertain times, nature offers beauty. The children smile with wonder. The adults forget the day's worries for just a little while. Across Britain, winter also arrives. Cold winds sweep across the North Sea. Frost covers rooftops in the early mornings. Fishing crews continue sailing despite the shorter days. Life cannot simply stop because the weather changes. Nor can it stop because governments disagree. In both countries, Christmas approaches. Homes are decorated modestly. Families prepare special meals. Letters arrive from loved ones at sea whenever possible. Many fishermen hope to return home before the holiday. Some will. Others will spend Christmas aboard their vessels. This has always been part of life on the ocean. Children understand it better than many outsiders might expect. They know the sea does not follow the calendar. Imagine Christmas Eve in a small Icelandic village. Snow covers the rooftops. Soft candlelight fills the windows. Church bells ring gently across the quiet landscape. Families gather together in warm homes. Some chairs remain empty because fathers or brothers are still at sea. Yet those absent are never forgotten. Extra portions of food are prepared. Small gifts wait beneath simple decorations. Everyone hopes they will soon be shared together. At nearly the same moment, a British trawler gently rises and falls upon the winter sea. The crew gathers in the galley. The cook has prepared a special meal using the limited ingredients available aboard. Someone has managed to save a small Christmas pudding. Another sailor produces a harmonica. Quiet music fills the little room. The men think about home, about children opening presents, about wives preparing holiday dinners, about parents waiting patiently. Though separated by hundreds of kilometers, families in Iceland and Britain share remarkably similar hopes. Safety, peace, a successful fishing season, the chance to be together again. As the first months of the Cod War continue, ordinary life remains stronger than politics. Children continue growing. Schools continue teaching. Boats continue sailing. Bread continues baking. Families continue gathering around evening meals. The disagreement between governments is important, but life itself continues quietly around it. Perhaps this is one of history's gentlest lessons. Even during moments of international disagreement, most people simply wish to care for their families, do honest work, and hope for tomorrow. As our evening walk through these coastal communities comes to an end, warm lights still glow from cottage windows. The smell of fresh bread lingers in the cool air. The sea continues whispering beyond the harbor. Somewhere far out upon those dark waters, fathers, sons, brothers, and friends continue their work beneath the same stars that shine above the homes waiting for them. And as the night grows deeper still, we will soon return to the sea itself, where the quiet disagreement between Iceland and Britain will begin to attract the attention of the wider world. Newspapers, diplomats, foreign governments, all will soon realize that this unusual conflict over fish has become something far larger than anyone first expected. But tonight, for just a little while longer, the cottages remain warm. The harbors remain peaceful. and families continue waiting with patient hearts beside the ever-faithful sea. The evening has settled into its quietest hours. The fishing villages we visited have fallen asleep. The lights in many windows have gone dark, and only a few lamps still glow softly along the harbor. The tide continues its gentle rise and fall, just as it has done for countless generations. Far out at sea, a handful of fishing vessels continue their patient work beneath the stars. The Atlantic remains calm. The cod continue their silent journey through the cold water. Nothing in nature seems hurried. Yet beyond the quiet harbors and the rolling waves, something remarkable is beginning to happen. The story of this small island nation and its fishing grounds is no longer known only to fishermen. Now governments are paying attention. Journalists are paying attention. People living thousands of kilometers away are beginning to read about a disagreement taking place in waters many of them will never see. Imagine walking into a newspaper office in London during the autumn of 1958. The building is already busy before sunrise. Reporters arrive carrying notebooks tucked beneath their arms. Editors sort through stacks of telegrams that have arrived during the night. Telephones ring now and then, though not constantly. The room is filled with the quiet sound of typewriters. Clicking, clicking, clicking. The steady rhythm of keys striking paper fills the air. One editor picks up a fresh dispatch from a correspondent covering events in Reykjavik. He adjusts his glasses and begins reading carefully. The report explains that Iceland has extended its fishing limits to 12 nautical miles. British trawlers continue fishing in the disputed waters. The Icelandic Coast Guard has begun enforcing the new regulations. No battles have taken place. No ships have been sunk. Yet everyone understands that the disagreement is becoming more serious. The editor pauses for a moment. How should such a story be presented? It is unusual. Most international disputes involve land, borders, or political ideologies. This one centers upon fish. Yet everyone in the newsroom understands that it is really about much more than cod. It is about resources. It is about national independence. It is about the changing rules of the modern world. Soon, the story appears in newspapers across Britain. Some headlines are dramatic. Others are more restrained. Readers gather at breakfast table to learn the latest developments. A father unfolds the morning paper while his tea cools beside him. His wife prepares toast. Their children finish getting ready for school. He quietly reads about Iceland's latest announcement. He may never have visited the North Atlantic. He may know little about fishing. Yet now he begins to understand that something important is happening. Not because it affects his own daily routine immediately, but because it raises larger questions. Who owns the sea? Who has the right to protect it? Across the North Sea, newspapers in other European countries also begin following the story. Editors in Denmark, Norway, France, Germany, and the Netherlands recognize that the outcome could influence their own fishing industries one day. Many coastal nations watch carefully. Some quietly sympathize with Iceland's desire to protect nearby fish stocks. Others worry that accepting wider fishing limits might affect their own fleets. No one wishes to make quick judgments. The situation deserves careful thought. Meanwhile, in Reykjavik, newspapers tell the story from a different perspective. Imagine entering a small Icelandic newspaper office. The room is more modest than the large newsrooms of London, but the work is just as important. Editors discuss reports arriving from Coast Guard patrols. Journalists interview fishermen returning from the sea. Photographers develop pictures of fishing boats entering harbor beneath gray northern skies. The headlines speak of protecting Iceland's future. Many readers feel proud. Their nation is small. Its population is modest compared with many European countries. Yet it has chosen to stand firmly in defense of what it believes is essential. For many Icelanders, this is not only about economics. It is also about independence. Only a few years earlier, Iceland had continued building its identity as a fully independent nation. Protecting its fishing grounds feels like another important step in shaping its own future. Imagine a quiet cafe in Reykjavik. Several fishermen sit together after returning from sea. Warm coffee steams gently from thick mugs. One man unfolds the morning newspaper. Another leans over to read the latest article. Their conversation remains calm. They speak about catches, about weather, about their families. Eventually, someone comments on the growing international attention. It seems the whole world is watching us now. Another smiles softly. All because of cod. The others chuckle. There is something almost unbelievable about it. A fish has become front-page news. Yet beneath the gentle humor lies real understanding. The issue reaches far beyond fishing itself. In London, government offices become increasingly busy. Diplomats exchange messages with Icelandic officials. Meetings are scheduled. Legal advisors study international law in great detail. Large books containing treaties and maritime agreements cover polished wooden tables. Every sentence is examined carefully. Every historical example is considered. Britain argues that Iceland's new 12-mile limit has not been accepted internationally. Therefore, British fishing vessels should continue operating as before. Iceland replies that protecting nearby fish stocks is both reasonable and necessary. Its leaders believe international law must evolve as technology changes. The discussions are respectful. Firm but respectful. Neither government wishes for hostility. Both hope diplomacy can eventually produce a solution. As these conversations continue, the people working upon the sea carry on with their ordinary routines. Imagine another calm morning aboard an Icelandic Coast Guard vessel. The crew receives updated instructions by radio. Continue patrols. Remain professional. Avoid unnecessary confrontation. Document all encounters carefully. The officers nod. Their responsibilities remain unchanged. A few hours later, a British trawler appears upon the horizon. The two vessels approach one another slowly. Messages are exchanged politely. Positions are recorded. The ships continue on their separate ways. These quiet meetings become almost routine. Although newspapers sometimes describe the situation dramatically, those directly involved often experience long periods of calm observation rather than excitement. There are moments of disagreement. Certainly, but there are also long hours when nothing unusual happens at all. The sea has always required patience. So does diplomacy. Imagine now a meeting room inside the headquarters of an international organization. Representatives from several countries gather around a large table. Maps of the North Atlantic lie before them. They discuss fishing rights, marine conservation, international customs. The conversations are thoughtful. Many delegates recognize that similar questions may soon arise elsewhere around the world. Fish do not recognize political boundaries. Whales migrate freely. Ocean currents ignore maps. How should countries share these natural resources fairly? The answer is not obvious. The Cod War, though centered on a relatively small part of the Atlantic, begins influencing much broader conversations about the future of the world's oceans. Scientists also become more involved. Marine biologists publish reports describing cod populations and breeding grounds. Their work receives increasing attention. For many years, scientific advice had often remained within universities and research institutes. Now government leaders read these reports with great interest. Reliable knowledge becomes an essential part of public policy. The fishermen themselves continue contributing valuable observations. Many have spent decades studying the sea through daily experience. They notice changes that cannot always be measured easily. Where fish gather, how currents shift, when weather patterns seem different. Science and practical knowledge slowly begin working more closely together. As winter deepens, radio broadcasts become an important source of information. Imagine a family gathered around a wireless radio one snowy evening in Iceland. The announcer speaks calmly about another round of diplomatic discussions. There has been no major breakthrough, but conversations continue. The family listens quietly. When the news ends, music begins. The father smiles gently. "There is still hope," he says. Across Britain, another family listens to a similar broadcast. The report sounds slightly different. The perspective changes. Yet the closing message is much the same. Talks are continuing. Everyone hopes for a peaceful solution. Ordinary people in both countries share that hope. As the months pass, journalists begin giving the disagreement a memorable name. The Cod War. It is a curious phrase. Some readers smile the first time they see it. War over fish. The words seem almost impossible. Yet the name remains. Perhaps because it is short. Perhaps because it captures the unusual nature of the dispute. Or perhaps because it reminds everyone that not every conflict in history is fought with armies. Some are fought through laws, through negotiations, through determination, and through patient diplomacy. As our quiet evening draws onward, snow continues falling gently across Iceland. Rain taps softly against windows in British fishing towns. Fishing boats rest in harbors after another long voyage. Government officials continue their discussions beneath the warm lights of meeting rooms. Journalists prepare tomorrow's newspapers. Printers begin rolling fresh editions before dawn. And somewhere beneath the cold Atlantic, the cod continue swimming exactly as they always have. Unaware that their quiet lives have become the center of an international conversation, reaching far beyond the sea itself. The ocean remains calm. The stars remain bright. And our own gentle journey is only beginning. Soon we will witness how patience, diplomacy, and quiet determination gradually shape the next stage of the First Cod War, as both nations search for a path that protects their futures without losing sight of peace. The night has become wonderfully still. Above the North Atlantic, countless stars shine with quiet brilliance. The moon hangs low over the western horizon, and its pale reflection stretches across the dark water like a silver road that never seems to end. Far from any city, the sea has its own kind of silence. It is never completely quiet. The waves gently brush against steel hulls. The wind whispers through radio antennas. A distant seabird calls somewhere beyond the darkness. The steady pulse of an engine echoes softly beneath the deck. These are the sounds that become familiar to every sailor. Tonight, let us spend a little more time upon these peaceful waters. Imagine the first light of dawn slowly appearing above the horizon. The sky changes almost without notice. Deep blue becomes pale gray. Gray becomes soft silver. Then, little by little, the first warm colors of morning spread across the eastern sky. The ocean reflects every change. It seems almost as though the sea itself is waking gently after a restful night. On the bridge of an Icelandic Coast Guard vessel, the officer on watch quietly lowers his binoculars. He has spent the past hour scanning the horizon. Most of the night has passed peacefully. A few fishing boats crossed nearby. One cargo ship steamed steadily toward Europe. Nothing unusual has happened. That, he thinks to himself, is always the best kind of patrol. The captain steps onto the bridge, carrying a steaming mug of coffee. He nods politely to the officer. No lengthy conversation is needed. A few words are enough. Anything to report? 2 trawlers to the north during the night. Weather remains calm. The captain smiles. A good start to the day. Below deck, the cook has already begun preparing breakfast. The familiar smell of fresh bread fills the ship. Soon the crew gathers around the small tables inside the galley. Some spread butter across slices of dark bread. Others quietly stir warm porridge. Strong coffee helps everyone shake away the last traces of sleep. The mood is relaxed. Several crew members discuss families waiting at home. One sailor proudly shows a photograph of his newborn daughter. Another laughs softly as he tells a story about his young son trying to knit a fishing net almost as large as himself. The men smile warmly. Life aboard the patrol ship has become a second home for many of them. Long voyages create close friendships. By mid-morning, the weather remains clear. Visibility stretches for many kilometers. The sea rolls gently beneath the ship. Suddenly, one of the lookouts notices several distant vessels. Dark shapes appear against the bright horizon. The officer lifts his binoculars once more. 3 fishing trawlers, all flying British flags. The captain studies the navigation chart. The vessels appear to be working close to Iceland's 12-mile limit. He gives a calm instruction. We'll take a closer look. The patrol ship changes course gradually. No sudden movements. No increase in speed. There is no reason to hurry. Professional sailors understand that calm decisions almost always produce better results. As the Coast Guard vessel approaches, one of the British captains notices it. He has seen this ship before, perhaps several times during recent weeks. The familiar white patrol vessel with its Icelandic markings has become part of everyday life. He quietly informs his crew. The Coast Guard's coming over. No one seems surprised. The younger sailors continue sorting fish. The older men glance briefly toward the approaching vessel before returning to their work. Encounters like this have become common. Soon the 2 captains speak over the radio. Their voices remain calm and courteous. The Icelandic officer reports the patrol vessel's position. He explains that, according to Iceland's regulations, the British trawler appears to be operating within the protected fishing zone. The British captain listens carefully. When the message is complete, he answers politely. He explains that he has instructions from the British government to continue fishing in these waters. Neither man raises his voice. Neither interrupts the other. Both understand that the conversation itself is important. It demonstrates professionalism, respect, patience. For several minutes, the 2 vessels continue moving slowly through the calm sea. The Icelandic crew carefully records the conversation in the ship's logbook. Time, location, weather conditions, names of vessels. Everything is written neatly. Accurate records may later become important during diplomatic discussions. The British captain also makes notes in his own log. His crew has been instructed to document every encounter. Even small details matter. History is often built from careful observations rather than dramatic moments. The conversation ends with a simple exchange of thanks. The radio falls silent once more. For a little while, both vessels continue side by side. The sailors glance toward one another across the water. Some raise a hand in greeting. Others simply nod. Many have seen each other before. Although they serve different countries, they recognize familiar faces. The sea has a way of making strangers into acquaintances. Over weeks and months, repeated meetings create quiet respect. One young Icelandic sailor watches the British crew through binoculars. He notices them repairing a torn section of fishing net. The work reminds him of his own father. Fishing techniques may differ slightly. Languages may sound different. But much of the work itself looks exactly the same. Another Coast Guard crew member quietly says, "They work as hard as we do." The captain nods. Yes, and they probably miss home just as much. No one argues. No one laughs. The observation feels true. Meanwhile, aboard the British trawler, one sailor watches the Icelandic patrol ship moving steadily across the waves. He remarks quietly, "They're always polite." Another sailor agrees. "They're only doing their job." Simple words, yet they reveal something important. Despite political disagreement, personal respect remains remarkably strong. As afternoon arrives, dark clouds begin gathering from the northwest. The wind freshens. Small whitecaps appear across the surface of the sea. The captain of the patrol vessel studies the changing sky. Experience tells him that conditions may become difficult before evening. He sends a weather warning by radio. The message reaches every nearby vessel. British, Icelandic, others as well. Storm warnings belong to everyone. The ocean does not distinguish between flags. Several British captains acknowledge the message with thanks. Within a few hours, the sea grows rougher. Rain begins falling steadily. Visibility decreases. The patrol vessel reduces speed slightly. Fishing becomes more difficult. Crews pull heavy waterproof clothing tighter around themselves. The waves lift every ship high before lowering it gently once again. Nature has quietly taken everyone's attention away from politics. Now every captain thinks about the same thing. Safe navigation. Late in the afternoon, another radio call arrives. A small fishing vessel, this time from another European country, has suffered engine trouble. It is drifting slowly in worsening weather. Without hesitation, nearby ships begin responding. The closest vessel happens to be British. The nearest Coast Guard ship is Icelandic. Together they coordinate assistance. The British crew remains alongside the disabled vessel until the Icelandic patrol arrives. Tow lines are prepared. Messages are exchanged. Within a short time, the troubled fishing boat is safely under tow. No one speaks about fishing limits. No one discusses international law. Helping another sailor comes first. This quiet cooperation becomes one of the least remembered, yet most meaningful, parts of the Cod Wars. Disagreements existed. Certainly. But so did humanity. As evening approaches, the storm gradually weakens. The clouds begin breaking apart. Golden sunlight slips through small openings, painting the waves with warm colors. A rainbow appears briefly above the sea. Several sailors stop working for just a moment to admire it. Even after years upon the ocean, such sights never lose their beauty. By sunset, the patrol ship resumes its ordinary route. The British trawlers continue preparing for another night's fishing. The day's encounters have ended peacefully. Much like yesterday. Much like many days before. History sometimes remembers only the largest events. Yet countless quiet days like this one shaped the character of the First Cod War. Not through battles, but through restraint, professionalism, and the shared understanding that everyone aboard these ships depended upon the same sea. As darkness slowly returns to the North Atlantic, navigation lights begin appearing once again. Small points of white, green, and red sparkle across the water. Each light marks another crew, beginning another night of patient work. Somewhere beneath them, the cod continues swimming through the cold currents, completely unaware of the conversations taking place above. The ocean breathes slowly. The stars shine brightly. The lighthouse on Iceland's distant shore begins its silent watch once more. And tomorrow, another patrol will begin. Another trawler will lower its nets. Another respectful conversation may take place upon these calm waters. The First Cod War continues. Quietly, patiently, one ordinary day at a time. As our own peaceful journey moves onward, we will soon leave the open sea and enter the meeting rooms where diplomats, lawyers, and government leaders search for a solution that might satisfy both Iceland and Britain. For while sailors continue their daily routines upon the water, another kind of voyage is unfolding on land. A voyage of careful words, thoughtful negotiations, and patient diplomacy. The North Atlantic is quiet once again. Night has wrapped itself gently around the sea. The fishing boats we followed only a short while ago now appear as tiny points of light scattered across the darkness. Their engines continue their steady rhythm, while beneath them the cold water moves with patient certainty toward distant shores. But tonight, we will leave the sea for a little while. Our journey now carries us inland, away from the harbors, away from the fishing grounds, away from the steady sound of waves. Instead, we arrive in places where history is writ with conversations rather than fishing nets. Imagine a government building in Reykjavik during the winter of 1959. Outside, snow falls quietly across the streets. The rooftops wear a blanket of white. People walk carefully along icy sidewalks, pulling warm coats closer against the cold northern wind. Inside the building, however, the atmosphere is calm and warm. A fire burns gently in one corner of a meeting room. Large windows overlook the harbor, where fishing boats rest peacefully beside the docks. A polished wooden table stands at the center of the room. Upon it lie maps of the North Atlantic. Several folders contain reports from marine scientists. Others hold records from Coast Guard patrols. Still others contain letters exchanged with the British government. Everything is arranged neatly. Nothing feels rushed. Soon the room begins to fill. Government ministers arrive first. They greet one another quietly. Legal advisors follow. Marine scientists carry notebooks filled with years of careful research. Officials from Iceland's fishing industry take their seats as well. Each person brings a different kind of knowledge. Some understand the sea. Others understand economics. Still others understand international law. Together, they hope to find the wisest path forward. The meeting begins without ceremony. One minister thanks everyone for coming. He reminds the group why they are gathered. Our purpose, he says gently, is to protect Iceland's future while preserving peaceful relations with other nations. Everyone nods. It is a simple sentence, yet it captures the heart of the entire situation. No one around the table wishes for conflict. No one hopes to create hardship for British fishing families. At the same time, no one believes Iceland can ignore the future of its own fishing industry. A scientist rises to speak. He walks slowly toward a large map hanging upon the wall. Using a wooden pointer, he indicates several fishing grounds surrounding Iceland. For many years, his colleagues have studied these waters. They have measured catches. They have examined breeding seasons. They have observed migration routes. Their research suggests that protecting cod during key parts of their life cycle will help ensure healthy fish populations for future generations. He speaks calmly. There is no dramatic language, only careful explanation. When he finishes, another official discusses Iceland's economy. He explains that fish exports provide much of the nation's income. Schools, roads, hospitals, harbors, many public services depend, directly or indirectly, upon successful fishing. Protecting cod means protecting much more than fish. It means protecting the stability of the country itself. The room grows thoughtful. Outside, snow continues falling. The harbor remains peaceful. Far beyond the windows, fishing boats wait quietly for their next voyage. Now let us travel across the sea to London. The journey is long, but the winter sky remains calm. Imagine entering a government office near the heart of the city. The atmosphere feels different from Reykjavik. The building is larger. The hallways busier. Messengers quietly carry documents from one office to another. Telephones ring occasionally. Yet inside one particular meeting room, the mood is much the same. Serious, respectful, patient. Maps of the North Atlantic cover another table. British officials study them carefully. Representatives from the fishing industry have also been invited. Many of them come from communities such as Hull and Grimsby. They know exactly how important Icelandic fishing grounds have become. One representative speaks quietly. Our fishermen have worked these waters for generations. Another adds, entire towns depend upon these voyages. No one disputes Iceland's concern for conservation. Many British officials understand that protecting fish stocks is sensible. The question is not whether fish should be protected. The question is how. Britain believes that changes to international rules should be agreed upon by many nations together, not introduced by one country alone. This difference lies at the center of the disagreement. Both governments value the sea. Both support responsible fishing. Both wish to avoid violence. Yet they disagree about the legal path forward. As weeks pass, letters continue crossing the North Atlantic. Imagine one such letter carefully typed upon thick paper. Its language is formal. Every sentence has been chosen with great care. There are no insults, no accusations. Diplomacy values precision. A single poorly chosen phrase might create misunderstanding. Officials read each letter several times before it is sent. Across the sea, another official reads the reply just as carefully. Sometimes the answers satisfy. Often they do not. Still, the conversation continues. Diplomacy is rarely quick. It resembles the sea itself. Steady, patient, persistent. Imagine a quiet afternoon inside the British Embassy in Reykjavik. Diplomats meet over cups of coffee. Outside, snow melts slowly beneath a pale winter sun. Inside, conversation remains courteous. The participants know one another well. Many have met several times before. Some have spent years working in international relations. They understand that personal respect matters. Even when governments disagree, individuals can continue treating one another with kindness. One diplomat remarks, "We must remember that today's disagreement should not become tomorrow's bitterness." The others agree. Such thoughts help keep conversations productive. Meanwhile, newspapers continue reporting developments. Journalists sometimes wish for dramatic headlines, but many days bring little visible change. Meetings continue. Letters continue. Fishing boats continue sailing. The pace of diplomacy is often invisible to those outside it. Yet important progress sometimes happens quietly. One conversation leads to another. One misunderstanding is cleared away. One small agreement creates room for a larger one. Imagine now a gathering of international legal scholars at a university. Professors from several countries discuss the changing nature of maritime law. Some support Iceland's position. Others believe Britain has stronger legal arguments. Many acknowledge that existing international rules no longer fully match the realities of modern fishing technology. The discussion remains respectful. No one claims to possess every answer. The world itself is changing. The law must eventually respond. In this way, the Cod War begins influencing ideas far beyond the North Atlantic. Students take notes. Researchers publish articles. Governments pay attention. Questions first raised around Iceland may one day affect oceans across the globe. As spring slowly approaches, daylight begins lasting a little longer in Iceland. Snow still covers the mountains, but sunlight lingers later each evening. Fishing boats return to sea. Patrol vessels resume their quiet watches. The rhythm of ordinary life continues. At the same time, diplomats continue their own patient work. Though they rarely appear in photographs standing upon fishing boats, their efforts are just as important. They seek not victory. They seek understanding. Some evenings after long meetings, negotiators leave their offices feeling tired. They walk quietly through the cool air toward their homes. They think about their families, about tomorrow's discussions, about whether compromise might still be possible. They know that thousands of ordinary people depend upon the decisions being made. That knowledge carries great responsibility. Imagine one Icelandic official standing for a moment beside Reykjavik harbor after sunset. The sea is calm. Fishing boats sway gently against the docks. Far out beyond the harbor entrance lies the vast Atlantic. Somewhere beyond that horizon, British fishermen are finishing another day's work. He reflects quietly. Perhaps the men aboard those trawlers are thinking about home, just as Icelandic fishermen are. Perhaps their hopes are not so different after all. The thought brings him a small sense of peace. History often focuses upon disagreements. Yet shared hopes are equally important. As darkness settles across both Iceland and Britain once again, fires glow inside warm homes. Children sleep peacefully. Fishing crews prepare for tomorrow's voyage. Diplomats organize another stack of documents. Scientists continue studying the sea. The Cod War has not ended, but neither has the conversation. And perhaps that is the greatest strength shown by both nations during these early years. Even while firmly defending their beliefs, they continue talking. They continue listening. They continue searching for a peaceful path through uncertain waters. Like experienced sailors navigating a foggy coastline, they move carefully, trusting that patience may eventually reveal a safe harbor ahead. The Atlantic remains calm. The stars continue shining above it. And our own quiet journey will soon follow the story toward its first important turning point, as years of careful diplomacy begin moving slowly toward an agreement that neither side considers perfect, yet both recognize as a step toward peace. The evening has returned once more. A soft breeze moves across the North Atlantic, carrying with it the familiar scent of salt and cold water. Gentle waves roll steadily toward Iceland's rocky shores, touching the land before slipping quietly back into the sea. The stars above seem brighter tonight. Perhaps they are no different from any other night. Perhaps it is simply that our journey has become slower, calmer, and more familiar. We have spent many evenings together following fishermen, coast guard crews, diplomats, and families. Now, after many months of careful conversations and patient determination, the first chapter of the Cod Wars is slowly approaching its conclusion. Let us walk gently into the year 1961. Nearly 3 years have passed since Iceland extended its fishing limits to 12 nautical miles. During those years, thousands of fishing voyages have taken place. Countless meetings have been held. Letters have crossed the sea again and again. Newspaper headlines have appeared and faded. Yet life itself has continued. Children have grown taller. Fishing boats have grown older. Seasons have changed from spring to summer, from autumn to winter and back again. The sea has remained constant through it all. Imagine another peaceful morning in Reykjavik harbor. Fishing boats are preparing to leave before sunrise. The harbor workers perform familiar tasks. Ropes are untied. Engines begin to rumble softly. Seagulls circle overhead, calling out into the cool morning air. Everything looks much as it did several years earlier. Yet something has changed. The uncertainty that once filled so many conversations has begun to soften. There's a growing feeling that an agreement may finally be close. Inside government offices, diplomats continue meeting. The discussions are still careful. Every sentence still matters. Every detail is still examined. But now the conversations carry a different tone. Instead of asking whether an agreement is possible, many begin discussing what that agreement might look like. Across the sea in London, similar thoughts take shape. British officials understand that the situation cannot remain unchanged forever. The disagreement has lasted for years. Fishing communities seek stability. Governments seek clarity. The time has come to search for common ground. Imagine two groups of negotiators seated around a long table. The atmosphere is serious but calm. Tea is poured into simple cups. Documents are exchanged. Maps are unfolded once again. Many of the people present have spent years discussing the same questions. Some recognize one another almost as old acquaintances. Although they represent different governments, they have come to respect one another's patience and professionalism. One Icelandic representative quietly explains why protecting nearby fishing grounds remains essential. He speaks not with anger, but with quiet conviction. He describes the importance of cod to Iceland's economy and to the future of the island. Across the table, a British representative nods thoughtfully. When it is his turn to speak, he explains the concerns of British fishing communities. Entire towns, he says, have depended upon these waters for generations. The men aboard those trawlers are not seeking conflict. They are simply trying to support their families. Both statements are true. Both deserve respect. The challenge is finding a solution that acknowledges both realities. As the discussions continue, something remarkable begins to happen. Neither side changes its principles completely. Instead, both begin searching for practical arrangements that allow the disagreement to end peacefully. Diplomacy often works this way. It is rarely about perfect victories. More often, it is about finding a path that allows everyone to move forward. Outside the meeting rooms, ordinary life continues. In Icelandic villages, fishermen still rise before dawn. Their wives prepare breakfast. Children walk to school, bundled in warm coats. Old fishermen continue, repairing nets along the docks. Across Britain, trawlers still leave Hull and Grimsby. The familiar rhythm of harbor life continues almost unchanged. Many families have grown tired of uncertainty. They hope only for clear rules and peaceful seas. At last, after many careful conversations, an agreement begins to take shape. Britain agrees to recognize Iceland's 12-mile fishing limit. In return, British fishing vessels are allowed limited access to certain areas for a temporary period, while they gradually adjust to the new situation. The arrangement is not permanent. It is a practical compromise. It gives fishing communities time to adapt without creating sudden hardship. When the agreement is announced in 1961, there are no grand celebrations. No fireworks fill the sky. No victory parades march through city streets. Instead, there is something quieter. Relief. Imagine reading the morning newspaper in Reykjavik. The headline reports that an agreement has been reached. A fisherman folds the newspaper slowly. He smiles, not because someone has been defeated, but because uncertainty has become a little smaller. He knows there will still be challenges ahead. Fishing is never easy. The sea is never predictable. Yet at least one difficult question has found an answer. Across Britain, another fisherman reads the same news from a different newspaper. He sighs thoughtfully. The future will require adjustments. Some familiar fishing grounds will no longer be available. That is disappointing. Yet he is also grateful that the disagreement has not become something more dangerous. He has seen enough storms at sea. He has no desire for storms between nations. In both countries, many people return quickly to ordinary life. Harbors remain busy. Fish markets continue opening before dawn. Children continue attending school. Life moves forward with quiet determination. The First Cod War has ended. Yet history rarely ends as neatly as chapters in a book. The agreement solves one problem, but it does not settle every question. Far beneath the waves, cod continue swimming across waters that no human map can truly contain. Marine scientists continue studying fish populations. Technology continues improving. Fishing vessels grow larger and more efficient. The world's demand for seafood continues increasing. New questions quietly wait beyond the horizon. Imagine an elderly Icelandic fisherman sitting beside the harbor one peaceful evening. He watches the sunset paint the sea in shades of gold and orange. A young boy sits beside him, perhaps a grandson. The child asks, "Is the Cod War over now?" The old fisherman smiles gently. "For now." The answer is simple, yet it carries quiet wisdom. History often moves in cycles. One disagreement ends. Another eventually begins. What matters most is how people choose to face those moments. With patience, with respect, with the willingness to keep talking even when agreement seems difficult. Across the sea, a retired British trawler captain walks along the docks in Hull. Many younger fishermen greet him warmly. They ask about earlier days, about the voyages to Iceland, about the First Cod War. He tells them stories, not about anger, not about enemies. Instead, he remembers the endless sea, the northern lights, the cold mornings, the Icelandic patrol crews who always remained polite, the whales that sometimes surfaced beside the trawlers. He smiles as he remembers. Time has softened the sharp edges of disagreement. The memories that remain are often surprisingly peaceful. Historians looking back many years later will notice something important. The First Cod War was unlike almost every conflict that carried the word war. There were no great battles, no armies crossing borders, no cities destroyed. Instead, it became an example of determined diplomacy, of two nations firmly defending their interests while continuing to search for peaceful solutions. Its lessons would prove valuable in the years ahead. For although the First Cod War had ended, Iceland's determination to protect its fishing grounds had not changed, nor had Britain's need to support its fishing communities. The questions surrounding the sea remained alive, only temporarily at rest. As evening deepens around us, the harbors become quiet once more. Fishing boats rest gently against wooden piers. Lighthouses continue sending their slow beams across the dark Atlantic. Families gather inside warm homes. Children drift peacefully to sleep. The sea breathes in its timeless rhythm. The agreement reached in 1961 has brought calm to these waters. For now, but far beyond the horizon, another chapter is already waiting. Within little more than a decade, Iceland will once again decide that its fishing limits should be extended. This time even farther. The next disagreement will be larger, more complicated, and watched even more closely by the world. Yet that story belongs to another peaceful evening. For tonight, let us simply enjoy the quiet satisfaction of knowing that patience, conversation, and steady determination helped bring the first Cod War to its gentle conclusion. The Atlantic continues its endless song. The stars shine overhead, and history, like the sea itself, moves onward one calm wave at a time. The sea is quiet once again. The first Cod War has gently faded into history, and for a little while the waters surrounding Iceland seem calmer. The fishing boats continue their familiar journeys. The harbors wake before sunrise and fall asleep long after sunset. Families settle back into routines that had been interrupted by years of uncertainty. If someone were standing beside Reykjavik harbor in the spring of 1962, they might believe that everything had returned to normal. In many ways it had. Yet history often changes quietly. Sometimes the most important events happen during peaceful years, when few people notice that the future is slowly taking shape. Tonight, let us take a slow walk through that quiet decade. It is a chapter without great confrontations, without dramatic headlines, without sudden turning points. Instead, it is a story of patient change. Imagine the harbor in Reykjavik on a bright summer morning. The sun rises early in the northern sky. Its light stretches across calm water, where dozens of fishing boats rest gently against the docks. The smell of fresh paint mixes with salt air. A carpenter repairs a wooden pier that has weathered many winters. Nearby, mechanics work carefully on fishing engines. The sound of hammers and tools echoes softly across the harbor. The rhythm feels familiar, steady, comforting. Every morning begins almost the same way. Fishermen arrive before dawn. Some carry lunch wrapped neatly in cloth. Others greet friends they have known since childhood. Many have spent most of their lives upon these waters. They check ropes, inspect nets, fill fuel tanks, study the weather one final time. Then one by one, the boats leave the harbor. Watching them disappear toward the open sea has become an ordinary part of life. Yet beneath these ordinary mornings, small changes are taking place. The fishing boats themselves are changing. Imagine stepping aboard one of the newer Icelandic trawlers built during the 1960s. Compared with many older vessels, it feels surprisingly modern. The engine is more powerful. Navigation equipment has improved. The radio reaches farther than before. Electronic fish-finding equipment, still simple by today's standards, begins appearing aboard some vessels. These new tools do not replace experience. The captain still studies the weather. The crew still watches the sea carefully. But technology slowly begins helping fishermen locate schools of cod more efficiently. What once required many hours of searching can sometimes be accomplished much more quickly. At first, everyone welcomes these improvements. Better equipment means safer voyages. Stronger engines make it easier to return home before storms arrive. Improved navigation reduces the risk of becoming lost in thick fog. Families appreciate these changes. The sea remains dangerous. Any improvement in safety is gladly accepted. Yet some older fishermen quietly wonder whether there might also be unexpected consequences. One elderly captain sits beside the harbor one evening after returning from sea. His grandson asks about the new electronic equipment aboard the boats. The old man smiles kindly. "It is a clever machine," he says. "But never forget to watch the birds." The boy looks puzzled. "The birds?" The old fisherman nods. "The birds know where the fish are long before any machine." The child looks toward the circling seabirds above the harbor. He begins watching them more carefully. The grandfather laughs softly. "Machines are helpful," he says, "but nature still teaches the best lessons." During these peaceful years, Iceland itself continues changing. Roads improve. Schools expand. Hospitals become better equipped. New homes appear in growing neighborhoods around Reykjavik. The country remains small, but it grows steadily more modern. Electricity reaches more rural communities. Telephones become increasingly common. Children born during these years grow up in a world somewhat different from that of their grandparents. Yet fishing remains the heart of the economy. Even families who never set foot aboard a fishing boat often depend upon the industry. Fish processing plants provide jobs. Shipbuilders remain busy. Harbor workers continue loading and unloading catches every day. Teachers, shopkeepers, doctors, and carpenters all benefit indirectly from successful fishing seasons. The cod continue supporting the island in countless unseen ways. Across the sea, British fishing communities also experience change. Imagine walking once more through the docks of Hull during the middle of the 1960s. The harbor remains active. Large trawlers arrive carrying thousands of fish packed carefully in ice. Dockworkers unload catches with practiced efficiency. Railway wagons wait nearby to transport fresh fish across Britain. Fish markets buzz with quiet activity from early morning. Yet experienced fishermen notice subtle differences. Some voyages require traveling farther than before. Finding large schools of cod is not always as easy as it once seemed. No one is certain why. Perhaps it is only a temporary change. The sea has always varied from year to year. Still, thoughtful conversations begin appearing more often. One captain quietly remarks, "It feels like we're working a little harder for the same catch." Another nods. "I've been thinking the same." No one panics. No one predicts disaster. The observations remain gentle, almost casual, yet they reflect changes taking place beneath the waves. Meanwhile, marine scientists continue their careful work. Research vessels leave port carrying biologists instead of fishermen. Instead of hauling commercial catches, they collect information. They measure fish, study breeding grounds, examine ocean temperatures, record migration patterns. Much of this work attracts little public attention. The scientists do not seek headlines. They seek understanding. Imagine one such research ship anchored quietly off Iceland's northern coast. A young marine biologist lowers scientific instruments into the cold water. She carefully records every observation in a notebook. Nearby, another researcher measures several cod before returning them gently to the sea. Hour after hour, day after day, the work continues. Patience defines science just as surely as it defines fishing. Gradually, the evidence becomes clearer. Modern fishing fleets are becoming remarkably efficient. Larger vessels, stronger engines, improved navigation, better equipment. All of these advances allow more fish to be caught than ever before. This brings prosperity, but it also raises new questions. Can cod populations continue growing if fishing becomes increasingly successful every year? The answer is not yet fully understood. Still, concern slowly begins spreading among scientists. Government officials listen carefully. In Iceland, these reports receive particular attention. Many leaders remember why the 12-mile limit was introduced only a few years earlier. Protecting the future. That goal has not changed. As the decade continues, Iceland's Coast Guard also evolves quietly. New patrol vessels join the fleet. Crews receive improved training. Search and rescue equipment becomes more advanced. Most days remain peaceful. The patrol ships spend far more time helping fishermen than confronting them. One winter afternoon, a violent storm suddenly develops north of Iceland. An Icelandic fishing boat reports engine failure. Within minutes, the Coast Guard receives the distress call. Despite towering waves and freezing winds, the rescue vessel heads toward the troubled boat. Hours later, every crew member has been brought safely aboard. The rescued fishermen thank the Coast Guard with warm handshakes. Such rescues rarely appear in international newspapers. Yet they become some of the most meaningful moments in the service of those who perform them. Saving lives remains the Coast Guard's highest purpose. As the late 1960s approach, the world beyond Iceland also begins changing rapidly. New technologies appear. International trade expands. Air travel becomes increasingly common. Satellites begin orbiting the Earth. People everywhere sense they are living through an age of remarkable progress. The oceans, however, continue following their ancient rhythms. The tides ignore politics. The waves ignore technology. The cod continue swimming according to instinct shaped over countless generations. Nature changes slowly. Human society changes quickly. Sometimes these two rhythms move together. Sometimes they do not. Imagine an evening meeting inside Iceland's Ministry of Fisheries near the end of the decade. Officials gather around familiar tables once again. Maps cover the walls. Scientific reports fill thick folders. One scientist quietly summarizes the latest research. Fish stocks remain under pressure. Modern fleets are becoming increasingly effective. The room grows thoughtful. Several ministers exchange silent glances. No decisions are made that evening. Yet everyone senses the same question returning. Is 12 miles still enough? Outside, snow begins falling softly across Reykjavik. Fishing boats sway gently in the harbor. Families prepare supper. Children finish homework before bedtime. Ordinary life continues peacefully. Almost no one realizes that another important decision is slowly approaching. Across Britain, fishermen continue sailing north. Many remain hopeful that the agreement reached in 1961 will provide lasting stability. Most have no desire for another dispute. They simply wish to fish, return home safely, and provide for their families. Their hopes are sincere. So are Iceland's concerns. History, however, rarely pauses simply because people wish it would. As the year 1972 draws near, conversations grow a little more serious. Scientists publish new findings. Government advisors prepare fresh reports. Fishing organizations watch developments carefully. No announcements have been made. No conflict has begun. Yet beneath the calm surface, the currents of history are quietly changing direction. The peaceful years between the First and Second Cod Wars have accomplished much. Technology has advanced. Knowledge has grown. Communities have prospered, but these same changes have also created new challenges that neither Iceland nor Britain can ignore much longer. As our quiet evening comes gently to a close, the harbor settles into silence once again. The last fishing boat has returned. The lighthouse sends its faithful beam across the sleeping sea. Far below the waves, the cod continue their endless migration, unaware that another chapter in their remarkable story is drawing ever closer. The Atlantic breathes slowly beneath the stars. And somewhere inside government offices, scientists' reports rest quietly upon polished desks, waiting for the morning when they will once again shape the course of history. The night has settled gently over Iceland once again. The harbor is almost silent now. Fishing boats rest peacefully against the wooden piers, rocking ever so slightly with the slow movement of the tide. The lighthouse turns patiently, sending its beam across the dark Atlantic, just as it did years before. The sea appears unchanged. The stars seem exactly where they have always been. Yet beneath this peaceful sky, another important decision is quietly approaching. History rarely announces itself with loud voices. More often, it arrives through thoughtful conversations, careful research, and slow reflection. As we continue our gentle journey, let us imagine that it is the early months of 1972. More than a decade has passed since the first Cod War came to its peaceful conclusion. Much has changed. Fishing boats are larger. Navigation systems are better. Engines are stronger. Many crews can travel farther than earlier generations ever imagined. Modern equipment allows fishermen to find fish with greater accuracy than before. These advances have brought many benefits. Voyages have become safer. Communication has improved. Weather forecasts are more reliable. Families waiting at home often feel a little less anxious than they once did. Yet every improvement carries new responsibilities. The sea can provide generously, but it cannot provide endlessly. Imagine a cold February morning inside Iceland's Ministry of Fisheries. Outside, snow covers the streets of Reykjavik. The city is quiet beneath a pale northern sky. Inside the ministry, lights glow warmly in a meeting room where government officials have gathered once again. The room feels familiar. Large maps of the North Atlantic hang upon the walls. Scientific reports are stacked neatly across a polished table. Some pages contain numbers gathered over many years. Others include charts showing changes in fish populations. Every document tells a small part of a much larger story. A marine scientist stands before the group. His voice is calm and measured. He explains that modern fishing fleets are catching cod more efficiently than ever before. The fish themselves have not changed. Human technology has. Larger nets, more powerful engines, improved sonar, better navigation. Together, these developments allow fishing vessels from many nations to harvest enormous quantities of fish. The scientist pauses for a moment. Then he quietly asks a simple question. If everyone continues fishing at this pace, what will remain for future generations? The room grows silent. No one answers immediately. There is no easy answer. An older minister slowly folds his hands. He has spent much of his life working with fishing communities. He knows that every decision affects real families, not only in Iceland, but in Britain as well. He understands that many British fishermen have worked these waters honestly for decades. He respects their skill. He respects their traditions. Yet he also feels responsible for protecting Iceland's future. The weight of that responsibility is never far from his thoughts. Across the room, another official opens a folder containing reports from Icelandic fishing captains. Many have noticed subtle changes during recent seasons. Some fishing grounds no longer seem as productive as before. Crews sometimes spend longer searching for cod. None of these observations alone proves that disaster is approaching. Together, however, they suggest that caution may be wise. The discussions continue throughout the day. Everyone speaks respectfully. No one raises a voice. No one seeks confrontation. The goal is not to challenge another nation. The goal is to preserve the sea. Outside the windows, snowflakes drift quietly toward the harbor. Fishing boats remain tied safely at the docks. Life beyond the meeting room continues as usual. Children walk home from school carrying books beneath warm coats. Shopkeepers greet familiar customers. The baker places fresh loaves in the front window. Most people know little about the conversations taking place inside the ministry. Yet those conversations may soon shape the future of the country. Far away across the North Sea, life continues in Britain's fishing ports. Imagine another morning in Hull. The harbor is already awake before sunrise. Dockworkers prepare for arriving trawlers. The smell of salt and diesel fills the cool morning air. Seagulls circle above warehouses, calling loudly as they search for scraps. Inside one trawler, a captain studies charts before departure. His crew loads supplies for another voyage north. Most of these men have heard occasional rumors that Iceland may once again consider expanding its fishing limits. But rumors are common in every fishing port. Few know whether they should believe them. One younger sailor asks the captain, "Do you think they'll really do it?" The older man pauses before answering, "I honestly don't know." He smiles gently. "We'll find out soon enough." The crew continues preparing the ship. Work leaves little time for worrying about events that have not yet happened. Back in Iceland, the weeks pass quietly. Government officials continue meeting with scientists. Fishing organizations are invited to share their experiences. Coast Guard officers provide reports from patrols. Every viewpoint is considered. No decision is rushed. One evening, an experienced marine biologist walks slowly along Reykjavik harbor after finishing another meeting. The air is cold. The sea is calm. He stops beside the water and watches several cod fishermen unloading their catch. Children run happily along the dock, laughing as they chase one another between stacks of wooden crates. The scientist smiles. These children, he thinks, deserve to inherit healthy oceans. That simple thought strengthens his belief that careful conservation is necessary. Eventually, after months of study and discussion, Iceland reaches its decision. The nation will extend its exclusive fishing zone from 12 nautical miles to 50 nautical miles. It is a remarkable increase, far greater than the extension made during the First Cod War. For Icelandic leaders, the decision feels necessary. They believe modern fishing technology has changed the situation dramatically. Protecting fish now requires protecting a much larger area of sea. The announcement is prepared carefully. Every word is chosen with great care. Officials understand that many countries will be affected. They know Britain will almost certainly object. Still, they believe waiting longer could place the future of Iceland's fishery at greater risk. On a quiet September day in 1972, the announcement is made. The government calmly declares that Iceland's exclusive fishing zone will now extend 50 nautical miles from its coastline. There are no celebrations in the streets, no loud speeches, no fireworks, only a formal statement explaining the decision and the reasons behind it. Across Iceland, people listen carefully. Many fishermen quietly approve. They have long hoped for stronger protection. Some shopkeepers discuss the news over afternoon coffee. Teachers mention it during conversations with colleagues. Families hear the announcement on the evening radio. Many understand that difficult weeks may lie ahead. Yet they also believe the decision has been made with the country's future in mind. Across the sea, the reaction is immediate. In London, government officials receive the announcement within hours. Meetings are called. Maps are spread across familiar tables once again. Legal advisors begin reviewing Iceland's declaration. The atmosphere remains calm, but concern is unmistakable. A 50-mile limit would close off a vast area of fishing ground that British trawlers had worked for generations. Fishing representatives from Hull and Grimsby are informed. Some shake their heads in quiet disbelief. Others sit silently for several moments before speaking. One captain folds the newspaper slowly. 50 miles, he says softly. That's much farther than before. No one disagrees. Everyone understands the significance. The British government soon announces that it does not recognize Iceland's new 50-mile limit. From Britain's perspective, Iceland has once again acted without international agreement. The legal disagreement that seemed settled only a decade earlier quietly returns. Yet despite the renewed disagreement, both governments remain careful. Diplomats continue speaking. Letters continue crossing the sea. Neither side wishes for violence. Both still hope that reason and patience may eventually lead toward understanding. Out upon the North Atlantic, fishermen continue their work much as they always have. The cod continue swimming beneath cold currents. The waves continue rising and falling beneath gray autumn skies. Nature remains wonderfully indifferent to human boundaries. A British trawler lowers its nets at dawn. An Icelandic fishing boat steams toward familiar grounds. Nearby, an Icelandic Coast Guard vessel begins another patrol. The captain quietly studies his charts. The new 50-mile boundary has now become part of his daily responsibilities. He knows the weeks ahead may be difficult. Yet he also knows his mission remains unchanged. Protect the waters. Protect the fishermen. Protect the future. As evening slowly returns, the first quiet signs of the Second Cod War begin appearing upon the sea. Not through cannon fire, not through battles, but through maps, patrols, radio conversations, and two nations once again standing firmly behind what each believes is right. The Atlantic remains calm beneath the stars. The lighthouse continues its faithful watch along Iceland's rocky coast. Families gather for supper in both Iceland and Britain, hoping that whatever lies ahead will be faced with wisdom rather than anger. Our own gentle journey will soon follow the first encounters of this new chapter, where improved Coast Guard ships, determined fishing crews, and changing international ideas about the oceans will slowly shape one of the most unusual maritime disputes in modern history. For tonight, the sea remains peaceful. The future waits quietly beyond the horizon. And the cod continue their timeless journey beneath the dark, cold waters of the North Atlantic. The night has become calm once again. Above the North Atlantic, countless stars shine across the clear sky. The moon casts a gentle silver glow over the rolling waves, and the sea moves with its slow, familiar rhythm. Nothing about the ocean seems different. The cod continue swimming through the cold water. Seabirds rest upon rocky cliffs. Fishing villages settle into another peaceful evening. Yet beneath this quiet surface, a new chapter has begun. The Second Cod War is slowly taking shape. Like the first, it does not begin with the sound of guns or the movement of armies. Instead, it begins with charts spread across tables, new instructions carried by radio, and ships quietly changing their daily routes. Imagine an Icelandic Coast Guard station in Reykjavik during the autumn of 1972. The building is busy long before sunrise. Officers arrive carrying notebooks and weather reports. Engineers inspect patrol vessels tied alongside the harbor. The smell of diesel fuel mixes with the fresh morning air. Inside the operations room, a large map now shows Iceland's newly declared 50-mile fishing limit. The wide circle surrounding the island seems much larger than before. Several officers pause for a moment as they study it. One quietly remarks, "It will take longer to patrol now." Another smiles gently. "Yes, but it is our responsibility." The expanded fishing zone covers an enormous area of ocean. Keeping watch over it will require careful planning. The Coast Guard cannot be everywhere at once. Every patrol route must be chosen wisely. Every ship must use its time efficiently. Fortunately, the Coast Guard itself has changed since the first Cod War. Several newer patrol vessels now serve in Iceland's fleet. They are larger than many earlier ships. Their engines are more powerful. Their radar systems are more advanced. Communication equipment has improved greatly. Captains can now remain in contact with headquarters far more easily than they could only a decade earlier. Imagine stepping aboard one of these newer patrol vessels. The bridge feels bright and orderly. Large windows provide excellent views across the sea. Navigation instruments line the control panels. The radar screen turns steadily, showing nearby ships even when fog hides them from sight. The radio operator listens carefully to messages arriving from fishing boats, merchant ships, weather stations, and Coast Guard headquarters. Technology has become an important companion. Yet the heart of the ship remains its crew. Experienced sailors still rely upon careful observation. The sea cannot be understood through machines alone. Knowledge gathered over years of sailing remains just as valuable. Early one morning, the patrol vessel leaves Reykjavik harbor. Its engines produce a deep, steady sound as the ship heads northward into open water. Behind it, the city gradually becomes smaller. Ahead lies hundreds of kilometers of ocean. The captain studies the weather forecast. Strong winds are expected tomorrow. Today should remain calm. A good day for patrol. Hours pass quietly. The crew rotates through their duties. Lookouts scan the horizon. Engineers inspect machinery below deck. The cook prepares warm soup for lunch. The radio operator carefully records every incoming message. Most patrols remain wonderfully ordinary. That is exactly how everyone prefers them. By midday, the radar operator notices several contacts ahead. Through binoculars, they become visible. A small group of British fishing trawlers work steadily upon the sea. The captain compares their reported position with the navigation chart. According to Iceland's new 50-mile limit, the vessels appear to be operating inside the protected zone. The patrol ship changes course. No sudden movements. No rushing. The sea remains peaceful. The Coast Guard approaches at a respectful speed. The British captains have been expecting such encounters. Many received instructions before leaving port. Remain calm. Continue fishing according to British government policy. Avoid unnecessary arguments. Record every meeting carefully. Soon the familiar exchange begins. The Icelandic patrol contacts the nearest trawler by radio. The officer speaks politely. He explains the vessel's current position and reminds the British captain that, according to Icelandic regulations, he is fishing within the 50-mile zone. The British captain thanks him for the information. His own reply is equally courteous. He explains that he has instructions from the British government to continue fishing. The words sound remarkably familiar. Almost identical conversations took place during the First Cod War. Yet this time, the protected area is much larger. That single difference changes everything. Many more British trawlers now find themselves inside waters claimed by Iceland. The Coast Guard has far more ships to monitor. The fishermen have far fewer places to work. The challenge has grown. The conversation ends politely. The Coast Guard notes the encounter. The trawler continues lowering its nets. For now, nothing more happens. As afternoon approaches, the weather begins changing. Gray clouds gather from the west. The wind strengthens gradually. Small whitecaps appear across the water. The captain orders waterproof clothing brought onto the deck. Crew members quietly prepare for rougher conditions. The sea reminds everyone that nature remains the greatest challenge of all. Even during international disagreements, storms command the greatest respect. Later that afternoon, the patrol vessel receives another radio message. An Icelandic fishing boat reports unusually large numbers of foreign trawlers farther north. The captain acknowledges the report. The patrol ship changes course once again. Hours later, several more vessels become visible. The sea is busy today. Some ships fly British flags. Others belong to West Germany or Belgium, nations whose fishing fleets also work in northern waters. Each captain has his own instructions. Each government holds its own legal position. The North Atlantic has become a place where different interpretations of international law quietly meet upon the waves. Despite these differences, professional courtesy continues. Captains greet one another over the radio. Weather reports are shared freely. If a storm warning arrives, every vessel receives it. Safety belongs to everyone. One evening, thick fog suddenly blankets the sea. Visibility falls to only a few hundred meters. Navigation becomes slow and careful. Radar now becomes especially valuable. The Icelandic patrol ship detects another vessel nearby. Moments later, the faint outline of a British trawler appears through the mist. Both captains reduce speed immediately. Each sound the proper fog signals. The ships pass one another safely. Over the radio, the British captain thanks the Icelandic crew for reporting their position clearly. The Icelandic officer replies warmly, "Safe voyage." Such simple exchanges rarely appear in history books. Yet they reveal something important. Respect continues to exist alongside disagreement. Meanwhile, back in Reykjavik, the Coast Guard headquarters grows increasingly busy. Patrol reports arrive every evening. Maps are updated. Officials compare information from different parts of the fishing zone. Patterns slowly emerge. Some areas experience frequent encounters. Others remain quiet. The expanded fishing limit requires constant attention. Across the sea, British fishing companies also adjust their operations. Captains study new charts before departure. Some voyages become longer as crews search for alternative fishing grounds. Fuel costs increase. Time away from home grows slightly longer. Families notice the difference. One fisherman from Hull writes a letter to his wife while the ship rests quietly overnight. He tells her that the sea remains beautiful despite the uncertainty. He describes seeing whales one morning, a brilliant sunrise another, the northern lights dancing across the sky one cold evening. He does not dwell upon politics. Instead, he writes about missing home, about hopping to return safely, about bringing small gifts for the children. His letter reaches England several weeks later. His wife reads it twice before placing it carefully inside a drawer with many earlier letters. For fishing families, Such letters become treasured reminders that distance cannot weaken affection. As winter slowly approaches once more, Iceland's determination remains steady. Government officials continue explaining that the 50-mile limit exists to protect fish stocks for future generations. British leaders continue defending the interests of their fishing communities. Neither side changes its position. The Second Cod War grows gradually more serious. Yet even now, it remains largely a contest of patience, endurance, and law rather than violence. The Atlantic continues breathing beneath the stars. The patrol vessels continue sailing. Fishing crews continue lowering their nets before dawn. Families continue waiting beside quiet harbors. Life moves forward one ordinary day at a time. And somewhere beneath those dark waters, the cod continue their ancient migration, unaware that the invisible lines drawn upon human maps have once again become the center of an international disagreement. As our own peaceful voyage continues, we will soon witness one of the most unusual inventions of the entire Cod Wars, a simple but ingenious tool that would change these quiet encounters forever. Instead of weapons, Iceland would soon introduce a device designed not to harm fishermen, but to separate them from their nets. It would become one of the most famous symbols of the Cod Wars. The night grows even quieter now. The wind that moved across the North Atlantic only a short while ago has softened into a gentle whisper. Above the sea, countless stars shimmer in the cold northern sky. Below them, the dark water rolls peacefully toward Iceland's rocky shores, following the same rhythm it has known for thousands of years. The fishing boats continue their patient work. The patrol ships continue their careful watch. And somewhere beneath the waves, schools of cod move silently through the cold currents, unaware that history is quietly unfolding above them. During the First Cod War, most encounters between Icelandic patrol vessels and British trawlers ended with conversations over the radio. Captains exchanged polite words. Positions were recorded. Reports were written. Each side continued, following the instructions given by its own government. Now, during the Second Cod War, the situation has become more difficult. The newly declared 50-mile fishing zone covers a much larger part of the ocean. More British trawlers are working inside the waters that Iceland now claims. The Icelandic Coast Guard faces a simple question. How can it enforce the new fishing limit without putting lives in danger? It is not an easy problem. Imagine a meeting inside the headquarters of the Icelandic Coast Guard during the winter of 1972. Outside, snow falls gently across Reykjavik harbor. Inside, officers gather around a large wooden table. Charts of the North Atlantic lie open before them. Patrol reports are stacked neatly in several folders. The room is quiet. One officer speaks first. Our patrols can ask trawlers to leave. Another nods. But what if they refuse? The room falls silent. Everyone understands the difficulty. The Coast Guard wishes to enforce Iceland's fishing laws. At the same time, no one wishes to create injuries or unnecessary confrontation. The solution, they hope, must be firm but peaceful. For many weeks, officers discuss different ideas. Some prove impractical. Others seem too risky. Eventually, attention turns toward a remarkably simple concept. Instead of trying to stop the entire fishing vessel, why not stop only the fishing itself? The thought seems almost too simple. A trawler depends upon its nets. Without its nets, it cannot continue catching cod. The crew remains perfectly safe. The ship remains undamaged. Only the fishing equipment is affected. It is an unusual idea. Yet the more the officers consider it, the more practical it appears. Imagine now a small workshop near Reykjavik harbor. Metalworkers study drawings spread across a workbench. Simple tools lie neatly, arranged beside pieces of strong steel. The workshop smells of fresh-cut metal and machine oil. One craftsman carefully shapes a curved piece of heavy steel. Another measures cables with great precision. Hour after hour, they test different designs. The device must perform one very specific task. It must slide down a fishing cable beneath the sea. It must reach the trawl wires holding the heavy fishing net. Then it must cut those wires cleanly. Nothing more. Nothing less. The work requires patience. Every angle matters. Every measurement matters. If the device is too heavy, it may not move correctly. If it is too light, it may fail to reach the net. Slowly, after many careful adjustments, the first successful design emerges. It becomes known simply as the net cutter. At first glance, it appears surprisingly modest. There is nothing dramatic about it. No loud engine. No complicated machinery. Just a carefully engineered piece of steel, designed to perform one precise job beneath the waves. Imagine standing aboard an Icelandic patrol vessel during one of the first missions involving this new tool. The morning is cold but calm. The sea rolls gently beneath a pale gray sky. Ahead, a British trawler works steadily, towing its heavy fishing net through the water. The Coast Guard captain watches through binoculars. He confirms the vessel's position. Once again, the trawler appears to be fishing inside Iceland's claimed 50-mile zone. The patrol vessel approaches slowly. The familiar radio conversation begins. The Icelandic officer politely requests that the British captain leave the protected area. The British captain responds with equal courtesy. He explains that he has instructions to continue fishing. The conversation ends. No anger. No shouting. Only professional disagreement. The Coast Guard captain quietly turns to his crew. It is time. Several sailors move carefully into position. The net cutter is brought onto the deck. The crew has practiced this procedure many times. Each movement is calm and deliberate. There is no rushing. The patrol vessel slowly positions itself near the fishing cables extending from the British trawler. Timing is important. The sea must be read carefully. The waves rise and fall. The two ships move gently with the swell. At exactly the right moment, the crew lowers the net cutter into the water. The steel device disappears beneath the surface. Now gravity and careful engineering begin doing their work. Far below, the cutter slides steadily down the taut towing cable. The crew watches silently. Nothing can be seen beneath the dark water. They wait. Seconds pass. Then another few moments. Finally, the heavy trawl wire parts cleanly. Far behind the British trawler, the fishing net separates from the ship. The catch escapes back into the sea. The trawler is no longer fishing. No sailor has been injured. No vessel has been damaged. Only the net has been lost. Aboard the British ship, the crew immediately understands what has happened. One sailor points toward the water. The net's gone. The captain sighs quietly. He had expected that this day might eventually come. Losing a trawl net is costly. Very costly. A large trawl net represents months of careful work and a significant financial investment. Replacing it takes time and money. The crew begins retrieving what equipment remains. No one is harmed, but everyone feels disappointed. The Icelandic patrol vessel records the incident carefully. The officers know that every use of the net cutter will receive close attention from both governments. Accuracy matters. Professional conduct matters. Everything must be documented. News of the net cutter spreads quickly through fishing communities. Soon nearly every British trawler captain sailing toward Iceland knows about the unusual device. Around kitchen tables in Hull and Grimsby, fishermen discuss it with great interest. Some admire its clever engineering. Others feel frustrated by the losses it causes. Many express both feelings at once. It is clever, one captain admits. I only wish they weren't using it on my nets. Across Iceland, many fishermen view the invention differently. They see it as an alternative to violence. Instead of firing weapons, instead of boarding ships by force, the Coast Guard has found a way to enforce Iceland's fishing laws while avoiding injuries. To them, the net cutter represents restraint rather than aggression. Historians would later describe it as one of the most unusual enforcement tools ever used in an international maritime dispute. Over the following months, the net cutter becomes increasingly effective. British captains develop new techniques to protect their trawl wires. Some experiment with stronger cables. Others alter the angle of their towing equipment. The Icelandic Coast Guard responds by refining its own methods. It becomes a quiet contest of engineering rather than firepower. Each side studies the other's techniques. Each side adapts. The sea becomes a place not only of fishing, but also of remarkable practical innovation. Imagine one calm evening after another long patrol. The Icelandic crew sits together in the ship's galley. Bowls of warm fish soup sit before them. One young sailor asks the captain, "Do you think history will remember this strange little machine?" The captain smiles thoughtfully. "Perhaps." He stirs his soup slowly. "But I hope history remembers something else as well." The young sailor looks up. "What is that?" "That we found a way to enforce our laws without harming people." The room grows quiet. Several sailors nod gently. No one aboard the patrol ship enjoys causing financial loss to another fisherman. Many understand exactly how difficult life at sea can be. Yet they also believe they are protecting Iceland's future. Across the sea, a British trawler returns home after losing another net. The captain steps ashore tired but safe. His young daughter runs toward him along the dock. She throws her arms around him. He smiles warmly. For a little while, thoughts of lost equipment fade away. Home is what matters most. In both Iceland and Britain, families continue hoping that the disagreement will someday end peacefully. As another peaceful night settles across the North Atlantic, the famous net cutter rests quietly aboard its patrol vessel, ready for another day if needed. Simple, ingenious, controversial. It has become one of the defining symbols of the Second Cod War. Not because it destroyed ships, but because it showed that even during international disputes, people could search for solutions that avoided the terrible cost of human lives. The Atlantic continues its endless rhythm. The cod continue their silent migration beneath the waves. And history moves forward, one careful decision at a time. Yet before long, another nation will become more directly involved. For Britain will decide that its fishing fleet should no longer face these patrols alone. Across the sea, powerful gray warships of the Royal Navy are preparing to sail north, not to fight a traditional war, but to stand watch over British trawlers in one of the most unusual naval operations of the 20th century. The quiet waters are about to welcome some much unexpected visitors.